just want to make sure what did you put in terms of escalation on that? It was good to have the conversation I had this morning. I'm well aware. Facebook only. It's gonna be. Don't you worry. Yes, you are a tall person, Riley. Just in case you didn't know. That's why we're put right in the corner over here.
Cut my hair finally. I think it's been maybe 2 years. I never get my hair cut.
You get mine done tomorrow.
Isn't it?
Tell me about it. I'm officially in Santa Claus.
Don't be.
Oh,
It all sounds please. What? There's no sense of making yourself nervous about it. Or do you thrive on the anxiety? Huh?
No, never mentioned.
It'll be good. It'll work. Oh, oopses.
No oopses.
There's no oopses. Don't say that. Everybody will be joyful.
You don't see the more fun, Gina?
What's that?
You don't see the more fun? What? The second one in 10 years.
No, I told her one and done. After that, it's up to her. I can't imagine.
She has a DJ she wants. She's gonna have a party. It's gonna be fine. It's all gonna be fine.
Suddenly the destination wedding sounding better and better, isn't it?
I'm really regretting saying no to that.
Oh, it was a question at one point.
Oh,
Oh, nice.
Wedding assistant for that day.
Somebody,
You plug in stuff in there.
She sends me the bills.
I get 2.5 hours, that's all I get.
she's got her
Yeah, you're
dress.
gone.
Well, that's what, I mean, I've been at.
My dress is
That's all.
in
You got a lot.
So let's see, year is 2028 in the end. I'm done.
See ya.
They're deciding. They're deciding. They don't care.
That's on my choices.
They take a little hit on it. It's raining.
It's seriously, it's.
No,
like I had that
they
one
were
shot.
showing it.
Yes. We have got a couple of rooms, so they don't want to stay in there.
You have that place on the side, you have their church and the wall, you have the desk, where you kind of want to go down there and make it hot. Negotiation tactic.
I understand.
Just saying. I actually learned that in law school, I started talking to class.
I have this one meeting.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance being led by Charlene Butte.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to our first regular Board of Trustees meeting for the Village of Ballston Spa in the month of May of 2025. Before we start anything else though, I do want to pay a quick acknowledgement to the fact that we have a birthday boy in our attendance and two soon-to-be birthday ladies that I know of, and maybe more. Chief Crow, it's his birthday today. Gina's is on Wednesday and Terry's is on Thursday. So let's start it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kevin Terry. Happy birthday to you. Thanks for coming out on your birthday, Kevin.
You guys sound good.
And that'll end the meeting now.
Please note it in the minutes that we send.
Let's go to the minutes. Can I get a motion that the minutes of the April 24th, 2025 meeting be approved because we were a little premature going 3 years in advance here apparently. So 2025, that should read. Trustee Fandesa, Trustee Bryce Bush, discussion.
The one issue I have with these minutes is I voted no on the budget and read a long statement, and there's no mention of the fact, I don't expect the whole statement to go in, but there's no mention of the fact that I read a statement explaining my no vote, which I think should have been.
Anybody want to make a change to anything on that?
And I mean, as I said at the time, I voted no because I thought the budget was bloated and it violated the controller's best practices for transparency. So
Yeah.
that's basically why I read a statement and voted no.
For the water.
Okay.
And I want to note that when others make statements, that it is noted that they make a statement.
So Burnett and Mary are the ones that made the motion. Second, do you want to make an amendment of any sort?
Yeah, Ballston made a statement explaining his opposition.
Thank you.
Okay. And Mary, you're good with that? All in favor as revised? Opposed? Motion carries. Tonight we have Officer Ed Ackley here to discuss with us his proposal to start the Office of Emergency Management. Officer, where are you?
I'm hiding.
Yes, you are. There you are.
Alright. So sorry.
There you go.
I'm gonna definitely prop this open because it's hot in here.
Feel free to prop the outside door open too.
I wanna say thank you for allowing me to do this, Mayor, Board of Trustees.
Be good loud, Ed, because I've never been a problem with you before, but we want to make sure the microphone can pick you up.
I'm in a different role. So I'm here today before the entire village to propose the resolution and hoping signature for the Office of Emergency Management. So all emergency services within the village, surrounding our village, and also our communities can start working hand in hand.
To the podium. Actually, the door.
If you move the podium forward.
There you go.
I'll break a leg here and move the podium.
Hey,
Does that work?
I think you're on camera now. Go for
I didn't know I had to be a podium jockey. I'm gonna do my best.
it.
All right, so in theory, I have 3 rules in my life, and I've kind of violated a few of them in my life, and that's lie, cheat, or steal. So if you're gonna lie for a friend. If you're going to cheat, you're gonna cheat death. And if you're gonna steal, you're gonna steal the heart of a maiden. And that is my lovely wife right there, and I stole her heart a long time ago. So that is my wife who's been putting up with me for several years through this travel, emergency services, military, and so much more. I come before you because I have a portfolio full of things that I don't have 10 minutes to offer on that, but I have 10 minutes to sell on other more tangible items. But without further ado, what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to start by, I'm sorry, that was for you.
Should have caught it.
My apologies. So there's a few things that we have to take in consideration when it comes down to emergency management. Emergency management kind of is the capstone of all branches of government working together for public safety. With that mentioned, one of the things that we are responsible for is going to be if you see something, you say something. And I bring this from the State Department of Homeland Security, some pamphlets, some pens, and some, I don't know what you want to call them, magnets and some pocket things in regards to if you see something, say something. That is actually an emergency management function in trying to prevent terrorism and human type disasters. With that spoken, I have a PowerPoint presentation I'm not going to be able to cover down on. Did you pick up the other one by chance?
I did.
You
Yes,
did?
we put it out halfway.
Thank you, sir. So I do have something. It's a proposal for the board and for file to look at and take their time in reference to it. And how many do I have?
I'm good at it.
It's fine, you sure?
Yeah.
All right. The first thing is always incentive. We all love stickers ever since we were kids, and in the fire service, that is one thing, and the police department, hand out stickers. So, here's the first introduction. You got a sticker, all right? But emergency management really is a hard job. Hard hats for hard job. The color white signifying the importance and purity of leadership and command and control. That is very imperative to everything that we do. But you can't have command and control without unity and spirit of the community as well as government bodies to embody the mission and focus of emergency management as a whole. So, what is emergency management? I'm going to use you as a prop. Can you do me a favor, hold the helmet up and look inside and see if there's wording. Is there wording in there?
Yeah.
What is the wording?
Warning? Oh, sorry. Just response. Use it in the helmet. Response, recovery, planning, and mitigation.
There you go. That is our mission. That is 100% our mission in emergency management and emergency services. Emergency services is encompassed and body of Department of Public Works, National Grid, fire departments, police departments, EMS agencies, restaurants, transportation agencies, and so much more. What this allows us to do is that when we bring this together as one, the emergency services and the emergency services caption is to plan. With that is preparation. We have to prepare for the worst. All hazard approach. Could be anything. Now, we don't want to experience another one of these. We don't. But there's a good chance it may happen. And if that is the case, and if it does happen, are we prepared? Can we answer that right now in our area for who we are, especially for what we're surrounded by? The village here is just like New Orleans. Does anybody remember what happened? When those dams broke, what did it turn into? Basically, a bowl of water. It got flooded out. Lessons learned from that. Here's another thing. Let's go back to 9/11. I didn't go to ground zero, but I sure did work the forensic land site, and I sure did participate in the after action reviews. And we made a lot of mistakes. A lot of those mistakes were made because we had poor planning. We had organizations that weren't willing to work together because of egos. We had people that had money, people that didn't, organizations that were willing, and others that did not. What is Unity Command? Is bringing all that together through resource management, everybody's experience, and collaborating an overall plan that is reviewed every 90 days, always built upon, and always develop. It's a continuous process. So you go from preparing to the actual response, to the recovery, and to mitigating. And you can put mitigating in between all those categories because when you mitigate, it's even during scene management. As a former incident commander and commanding infantry and commanding police and commanding embassy operations and commanding an infantry platoon and commanding firefighters in their battles, I'm going to tell you that it is continuous. You have to be able to adjust to the people's capability, the environment, the weather, the resources, and the information that is provided. And what emergency management and the Office of Emergency Management will allow us to do is establish a place like this, over there, or whatever the pre-plans allow us to do is focus on managing the incident to protect property, save life, and ensure that resources are available for an adequate recovery, because we're never going to recover to normal, but we can at least recover the best we can and come together as a community to do so. That's a lot. And the presentations in there will show you that it's a lot. There's a big description, an overall description on how that would always come together, and that is through organization. Organization is key to making things happen, and that is through systems. If we don't have systems, and the best description and great systems is through the National Incident Management System and Incident Command Systems. They say systems, there's a lot of systems being thrown at you, but the theory behind it is that California had it right many years ago and it floated our way. And it was all developed through the forestry departments. It allowed them to maintain accountability, hard-hit areas, soft areas, hazardous areas, vulnerable areas, high-risk environment concern like ours. We have a railway track that has all kinds of fuels that go through there. If I gave you a list today, my analytic review of what comes through our village, it's pretty horrific. And we need to be planning for either a purge, a burp, a leak, a crash. It could be anything. Or even something as simple as somebody wanting to commit suicide with their vehicle. And that is something that is in my PowerPoint presentation they didn't have the opportunity to do. But my team of people, we will be covering down on that. We will be rehearsing NIMS, and with the community there will be exercises because we want to be ready. We don't want it to happen, but we want to be ready for the worst outcome. But we have to be organized. And the organization starts with the mayor. That goes down to his board of trustees. And that one trustee that's going to be an emergency manager is going to oversee the coordinator, which hopefully I'm appointed to that position. And that chief coordinator then has deputy coordinators, and those deputy coordinators come from specialties in their fields, such as fire, police, EMS, DPW, and so much more. And then, as a committee, we then, or as a board or a Office of Emergency Management, we then have committees. And those committees come from the restaurants, comes from the residents, comes from other businesses. It comes from an array of people that can provide resources such as transportation, blankets, pillows, water, food, anything, facilities, all that. Because when we come together and we have plans, and then everybody knows, hey, if this does happen, if we do have a serious flood, or if Bath Street ends up having a mudslide, or over here by Malta Avenue, and that road gives out because of the slope index, or we do have a train accident, or a derailment, or a purge, or a leak, or the Radion and as well as nuclear facility has a crack. We're within that area of threat. What if the dams collapse? These are all the things that we should be considering and being prepared for. If those dams collapse, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. One of our fire departments right here is in it. So we have to have planning, we have to think about it. Because if they get flooded out and all the resources are there, what are we going to have? Mutual aid agreements. Who do we have these agreements with? And this is what emergency planning does. We make sure that the right people for the right job are at the right places for the right reasons. And while we, the village, are not only orchestrating it, coordinating it, but we're making it happen so we get back to our normal lives. That's all I have for you.
Ed, what's the next step you need from the board to begin making progress forward on this?
I would recommend that the village board of trustees review the material and think strongly about approving a resolution on the development of the Office of Emergency Management. Once the resolution is approved and signed, it would be in our benefit that the bylaws that are the founding doctrines of governing body to operate get signed as well as our starting documents. And please review the current comprehensive emergency management plan. That is a blanket. That is a blanket and foundation for the more intense emergency operation plan, which is attached, which is all the threat and analysis that will be done within the year, 2 years, 3 years, because planning is continuous, drills are continuous, training is continuous. And then hopefully down the line, it is going to be a group effort thing. People aren't scared or in fear as much when something does bad happen. And here's another concern too, Mayor, is that in Corinth, in 2009, even in the early 1900s, they lost a whole row of businesses. That can happen, all for fire. That may not sound like, oh wow, this is an emergency management type thing. It absolutely is. Anything greater than your one agency is going to be mutual aid and also emergency management. Anything natural, as well as man-made disaster, or a all hazards approach is considered an emergency management scope of practice.
Chief Crow's nodding his head over there. Chief,
Yeah,
what are your thoughts?
Something up to you. So I've been in contact recently here with CP Rail Law Enforcement, we're going to bring them in to do a, conversation of a drill, whatever sort of a derailment or some sort, looking for expectations from us, what they're looking for. And I wanna see how they operate as well. Is that something you'd like to be included in or something?
Absolutely, and I believe that, our selected or appointed emergency manager, maybe some board trustees and you, Mayor, should be part of that.
All right.
But the police department should also be part of it,
Yeah,
because it
absolutely.
plays a
We're
big
looking
role.
at around September timeframe, so.
Okay.
All right, cool.
So more or less, we're looking at kind of a forming of a cooperative between all of our emergency management folks, our first responder folks, et cetera here, and in a way that helps plan for precautionary reasons, for things that could go wrong. And you need us to essentially pass a resolution to begin the process at a certain point, not this week, obviously, but probably at our next meeting. Materials were included inside the attachments, but we can get those rolling. There are a couple of minor edits that I thought that we can make as well to some of the materials.
Thank you.
We will have a little bit more discussion as a board later on in old business, or new business perhaps, I'm not sure which one it fell under, but either one. So just to tee that up and make sure that we're gonna move that forward, and more time will be on that. So you're free to go, won't be much meaningful stuff, but if there's any other questions from the board to ask right now, would be
I'm all
the
about
time.
questions and answers.
Go for it.
Anything. Yes, sir.
Thanks for your presentation. Does the town of Ballston, town of Milton, and Fairfield County, they all have existing committees like this now?
I do believe the town of Milton has a committee, not as active as we would like to believe, but they do have resources that we can utilize by simple agreement and plan attached to our future operations. I've already been in contact with county, and just like it says under the Emergency and Disaster Preparedness Act, under 2B, it basically says that it starts at the local level, ends at the local level, and we have full control of what happens in our jurisdiction.
But there is interaction with the county at some time.
Absolutely.
The county has a very robust emergency management.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
Carla?
My understanding, hi, nice to meet you. We talked a few hours ago. My understanding is that the county is required to have this.
They are required, yes.
And cities over 1 million are required to have it. The village is authorized by statute to have it.
Highly recommended.
Right, oh, absolutely.
Yep.
But it has to be in coordination with the counties.
That is correct.
Okay,
But our plan can supersede and be more, as you said, more detailed.
Right.
And they need to be informed on what our details are.
that was my question. When I looked at the resolution, that the plan has to go to the county and the county has to
Yes,
be
it does.
done. Okay,
Ray,
Because
so
we have to be able to reach out for resources.
correct.
as former executive director of community emergency, was this something that you had wanted? I know you were always honest to read some of the stuff out there from the federal government about emergency preparedness, but
I read through this today and, nice job.
Thank you, sir.
There's a lot of stuff in there, but it's all good stuff. What I see in there is something that is definitely necessary. Kevin and I have sat together on the committees in Ballston and in Milton. Not having the village in on that is wrong. You know, we really do need this position. And of course, now you come up with it when I'm not working anymore. And
you just stay involved. Nobody's gonna tell you no on that.
no, yeah, talk to Miller. It's just one of the things that I want to stress, and I'm sure Kevin will agree, and you'll agree, is the first step to all this is communication. Anytime, we've all been through all those NIMS courses, 1 through 1,000. One of the first things they always say is you have to be able to communicate with each other, or else the whole thing falls through. You know, you can't use smoke signals, you can't pass notes, it's gotta be airwaves. And the more we can do to emphasize that and make this all happen, because the time for that is not when it's going on, it's preparing. Yeah, that to me is foremost. Let's get the communication in place that we talked about and move on from there. But
This also
excellent
helps,
program.
yeah, and this also will help the community to have a sense of ownership in the village in which they work and live in. So it's very important.
Thank you for your insight, sir. Anybody else on the board have any question at this point?
I look forward to hearing more about your activities. Just as liaison of the fire department, I would love to be looped in, not all the time. I don't necessarily need to be at all the meetings, but I'd like to participate in some way.
Also, credit to Mary, because Mary was the person that came to me originally and said, we need to do something like this. And I said, Mary, go ahead, start getting things together. And she got you looped in, and you are a very bright person when it comes to this stuff. We know that, and it shows here in what you've already put together for us. So we thank Mary and thank you for that as well. And we thank your wife because she puts up with it. Yeah. Okay, we will move on to our next piece of the meeting. Thank you, Jack. Next piece of the meeting is going to be public comment. We have two walk-ons tonight. One that was unintentionally omitted when I put out the final one. The materials are in the attachments, but it is to approve but not to exceed $10,000 additional for Fisher Associates with respect to the zoning code as outlined by Chris Crucial in his letter. So that motion will be forthcoming, as well as a motion for an easement that is necessary for the town of Milton via National Grid for their new highway garage to make sure they can get that online appropriately. The board had received an email with those edits earlier today. So those two will be walked on. So in this public comment, you may comment on those. 3 minutes per speaker, again, for agenda items only. If you're on Zoom, now would be the time to utilize that. And does anybody have the rules and regulations handy? Because I did not print those out.
I can find you.
Mary?
Wants to read the ground rules?
The ground rules? That's not the ground rules, though.
Is that the, aren't they the same at the end?
I don't think so. I think we rewrote them. Thank you. Following rules will apply to all village board meetings. One, all comments and questions from the public shall be directed to the board only, not specific department heads, consultants, or other members of the public. 2, no one shall make statements during the meeting that involve personal, impertinent, or slanderous attacks on any group, organization, or individual, a member of the board, an employee of the village, a member of the audience, or a member of the public, regardless of whether the individual sought to be named is present. The use of profane, vulgar, threatening, or racial or ethnic slurs is prohibited. 3, no one will disrupt the meeting with loud outbursts or other disruptive conduct or behavior, including but not limited to obscenity, heckling, taunting / cheering, physical threats, abusive language, etc. at any time during the meeting. And 4, failure to comply with the foregoing rules may result in early termination of allotted commenting time for a member of the public, denial of future requests to speak, removal from the meeting, and any other actions deemed necessary by the presiding officer or by majority vote of the board. Thank you very much, Mary, for that. And first to speak, any hands? Liz.
I just have some clarification. Liz Cromos, 89 High. On the abstract, there were 2 items I just would like some clarification on. One is on page 10, LaBerge Engineering and Consulting, for a total of $14,557.20. My question is that related to this John Street water tower? It says BS water study, so I don't know, what that's for. Is that some other water study, or is that related to the John Street tower? And then on page 12, quick response restoration for 30 Bath Street, $12,675.40. Was there, this restoration, what happened? So those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mike?
Thank you. Good evening. Mike Akowicki, 3 Encore.
Not Russell?
Not Russell.
Oh, we read in Times Union, lives in Russell today. Go ahead.
So what is the point there, Mr. Mayor? You know, you yourself have claimed that newspapers improperly cite things. Is there a possibility that the newspaper reporter improperly cited that address?
Here.
Okay, 3 Encore. Just a couple of questions about motion 7C, purchase of the ladder truck. And I want to emphasize as clearly as I can, I am not questioning the need to get a new ladder truck. I understand that the current truck often requires repair, time, energy, money. And I support the idea of a new ladder truck. The material from Firematic indicated that it was created, the proposal was created, per the specs in bid number 956. Might just be me, I couldn't find bid 956 in the website materials. So I'm not sure what those specs were. So quick question, is that request for the fire truck a customized fire truck? If so, has the village considered whether there might be a truck available to meet the needs of the fire department, perhaps sooner than 44 to 48 months out, and perhaps at a lower price? With respect to the financing, I just want to be sure I'm clear, is the discussion for the resolution financing of up to $3 million, or is it $3 million? Another question, will dollars from the reserve fund that supposedly is in place for the fire department going to be used toward the purchase price? And with that estimated lead time of 45 to 48 months for delivery, will the actual borrowing occur upon delivery of the truck? And will the interest rate be determined at that time? And finally, what are the expectations for the term, that is the length of the loan that will be taken? Thank you.
Anybody else? Marilyn?
Marilyn Stevenson, 45 West High Street. I'm reporting on the zoning advisory committee. We met on May 1st. We had 6 of the 10 members in attendance. And,
There are 11 members.
okay, we
No,
only
there's
have,
10 that
we only
everyone
have
is
10
on.
that we know of, but this is my time. I'm glad to see the zoning schedule is under new business. Most of what we talked about was in relationship to the timeline. And so I'll just say, if we can get an update, not only on the timeline, but also a few questions that were posed during our meeting. The status of the legal review of the second draft of the zoning code. A question about how will comments from the public be incorporated from not only the April 3rd public rezoning workshop, but also the public's written comments that were posted on the village website. When will the public see the next draft of the code? And the consultation that's supposed to happen with the planning board, we have a question as to whether or not that will actually be through a meeting of the planning board members reviewing the final version of the draft code, or will the planning board opt not to meet, and under current zoning code, when they fail to meet, any edits to the zoning code are automatically passed. We even questioned whether or not that's been reviewed by the attorneys. And then finally, when is the public hearing scheduled for the final version of the zoning code? And in addition to the customary legal notice, will the public hearing notice appear on the village's website? Because we know that, one of our issues is that communication is not happening on a readily available basis. It's happening in a non-customary way. Sometimes the public has given us some feedback that a legal notice is very hard to see, and social media is not the preferred mechanism to communicate official village business. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none and seeing none. We'll move on. We have 6 items on the consent agenda tonight. Anybody want to remove any of the 6? Hearing no objections, can I get a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa. Trustee Baskin, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that the resignation of Danielle Thompson from the Ethics Committee be accepted effective immediately?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa.
I'll second.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion.
Thank you to Danielle
Absolutely.
for all the time.
Yeah, I just want to say, from a personal point of view, that, as I said elsewhere, we may not always agree time to time, but working with her and with Jim Carter, 2 people I never got a chance to work with before becoming mayor, it's one of those things where I look at being mayor as such a benefit to get to know folks I wouldn't otherwise get to know. And I really appreciated her when she came in with the letter, and I gave her a hug. I was so sad to see her step down, but she has her reasons. I get it, and I'm sorry to see that. So thank you, Danielle, for all that you've done. But continue to do things with us here in the village, and Jim Carter as well, her husband, does a phenomenal job on the library board with us. So thank you to him for all he does. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Taking a motion that the attached standard workday resolutions be approved.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa.
I'll second.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion.
I guess I was surprised about the work days, because I know being a state employee, if you're office staff, you're 7.5 hours, if you're operations and maintenance, you're 8. So I know there's a lot of varying hours. I understand if some are part-time, that they would vary, but I guess for full-time staff, I was kind of wondered why some are 6, some are 7, some are 8.
I think all the part-times were 6 and all the full-times were 8, is the way I saw it when I read through them.
Yeah, but there were some part-times that were 8 as well.
There's a bunch of people at 7, which surprised me. I thought standard workday was and would be 7.5 hours.
Well, I know they've worked directly with Neisler's on this, and that's how this even got
I
developed,
was
so.
just curious.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, the question is how it got like, how did the numbers get created?
Well,
were
you
part of
still
that?
need to give your own
Right.
verbose to basically justify your specific numbers. They're looking to say, what is the general expectation of the workday until they receive that? I don't write these rules.
I mean, full-time staff isn't doing record activities.
So full-time for the state legislature is 7 hours a day. So, I mean, some people work more, often we work way
Elected
more.
officials or the staff?
The staff. So like, my regular work day would be 7 hours. It's well beyond that, because we're there. But yeah, it's 7 hours a day, so it's 35 a week.
Most
So
states-
it's not
most-
uncommon.
Yeah, most state agencies are 7.5.
But the legislature, I don't know, I can only speak to the legislature.
Full-times generally, don't forget, are assumed that their job position, job description is what's being followed and your availability at certain times each day. So that's why there's not that requirement on full-time. So that's why part-times, though, because they're different in that realm, have a different expectation requirement through Neisler's. So that's kind of what I've been, baptism by fire. I never really knew how Neisler's worked until I got here. Still have a lot of questions myself about some of the things, but I know what they've been going through to get this done, and they've been working directly with them to get these documents together. So thanks to, especially Rebecca's been kind of burning the candle at both ends on this one to get this done.
And to be clear, it's like an hour lunch, that's why it's 7 rather than 8,
Okay.
so.
So Bernadette and Mayor, you guys turned in your record of activities. Did you use a 6-hour day as part of the calculation?
No, I kind of looked at what I kind of do day to day and,
No. Sorry. Yes, your record of activities was what you did day to day, but I think part of the calculation where you have to divide by number of days, number of, official work hours.
They have
There's like this calculation of like
template
3 or
that
4 steps.
does some of it for you, I think, if I remember correctly.
So I just wanted to use 6 hours there because this wasn't.
I think it was 6 hours.
Yeah, and then
Probably would be close, yeah.
the mayor, you're doing 8-hour day.
And
Some are
we
7,
talked,
some-
I got direct advice from Leisler's on the fact that because I'm available throughout the day for phone calls, meetings, et cetera, that's the expectation of the mayor, and that I do that. And so they said 8 hours, as I said, it could be 24 hours technically, and how do we, distinguish that?
Right.
And so that's the conversation we had, and what I did as a response to it. So,
I noticed everybody but the clerk. Is the clerk?
is a full-time position.
I don't know that the clerk was listed.
She's appointed.
There was a deputy clerk, there's
Yeah,
a registrar,
Clerk
There
is an
was-
appointed position.
but they also have a standard workday?
They're also viewed as full-time.
So, but it could be 7 or it could be 8.
It depends on what was submitted or what we're submitting at this
Right.
point.
No, I'm just saying, I didn't see it. I'm wondering if it needs to be added, but, and then the other piece is there is, and I just saw it, I was looking this stuff up, this afternoon, that, for elected officials, there's a different form, and I don't know how big a deal it is, but there is a different form, and it says like, there's one form for employees, another form for elected officials, so just to check that out and see if we need to put things for elected officials on a different form.
That's all. There's trustees in there.
It's, yeah, where are we on that personnel policy related, just,
Back burner for a little bit, but we do have a draft that we're trying to make heads or tails of. Carly given us some legal thoughts on that, so did Elaine, and I've got to compile all that, so we're gonna be getting back to that very soon, now that we're through the budget and everything.
so maybe
Budget kind of got right in the way of the
in
time.
June or something?
Let's hope so. I would definitely be trying for that, I'll say that much.
Because there too, we'd obviously want to be consistent with what we're sending to the state in terms of what a standard part-time job, up to a certain number of hours, and what a full-time job.
Not sure that's gonna be directly covered.
That's not in this?
I don't think so. I'll check, make
It's
sure,
not in
but,
there.
okay.
The specific hours are not in there.
There's no definition of part-time and full-time? Because that's pretty standard in a lot of these things.
There's a definition, but I don't think it has a specific number of hours.
Usually the definitions include, up to X number of hours is part-time and above that is full-time.
I think it's in state labor law, isn't it?
I can tell you that Labor Council is reviewing it, and she'll make sure that any labor laws are followed.
All right, I look forward to seeing that. It's been a number of months, so that's something we definitely.
You guys are pretty busy. You keep legal pretty busy. So we are in the process of doing it.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll skip the bond resolution for half a second. Actually, no, I'm not going to, because we have too many firefighters here. Hi, guys. Sorry about that. Do you want to run through what we need to do here on behalf of Larry, et cetera?
Sure, I can explain it. Larry Pouchwitz of my office does the bond work, and has been doing it for probably longer than I've been alive. But generally what you have before you, I believe you guys have bonded before, so just as a refresher, a bond is not an appropriation of a specific amount of money. A bond is an authorization, the bond resolution is an authorization allowing you to bond or somehow borrow up to that number. You can borrow less, you can borrow 0. You can't go above it without another authorization. So what you have before you is a resolution authorizing the purchase and the issuance of the serial bonds for $3 million. It does not say you're spending $3 million. I want to make that clear for everybody in the room too, that this does not say the village is spending $3 million. It says the village is authorized to spend $3 million. This is also subject to a permissive referendum, as you can see in there. And as the board is aware, a permissive referendum means that this does not become valid for 30 days, and it allows the public the opportunity to look to see whether they want to get together a petition to force this to a referendum village-wide. After that 30 days with bonding, there's another 20-day legal estoppel period where there are, you're set for another 20 days, you can't do anything. So say after 30 days, you don't get a petition, that doesn't mean you can go out and buy the truck. You still have 20 days to go through the legal estoppel period, which really the only way you can fight that is to say that this is constitutionally invalid, which it's not. but
And
that's.
that will take us basically to our first meeting in July.
That's 50 days,
Yep.
and there's specific publication requirements or specific times that has to be published, all of that. So it won't be until 50 days from the date of publication that this can even be acted upon. So just to be clear, all you're doing tonight is authorizing yourselves the ability to bond up to $3 million. You can do it with serial bonds or private loans. Serial bonds is different. You can do bands, bond anticipation notes, things of that nature. So that's what this is. It's just, and the public has the right, if they want to petition for a referendum on the purchase of this. There's a whole process in the law that they can look at if they want to. And then it goes out for a full vote, and that kicks everything out probably 6 months. So I think legally that's where, if the board does that have any questions, I know that this was provided to the board as well.
I guess it's not really any legal questions on it, but if it is gonna go to permissive referendum, is there going to be, numbers like how much is this gonna cost on an annual basis? Who's paying for it? What percentage is gonna be from Milton, Ballston, the village?
So that's not what's going out for referendum. What's going out for referendum is solely this resolution. It is the authority of the board to bond up to $3 million. That is the sole question that would go out to referendum.
I understand that.
Well, there wouldn't be the backup that you're asking for. That's not what's going on.
Right, but wouldn't it be our duty to inform the public of those things so they can decide whether or not they want to petition for a public referendum? I mean, those would be the things they would need to say, hey, okay, I'm fine with this, or no, I don't want this to happen. I guess that's kind of where I'm at with this, is that if we're going to put out a permissive referendum, public needs certain information to decide whether or not they're fine with it or they want to petition it.
Well, and again, you're not putting it out for permissive referendum. It's subject to permissive referendum. Those are two different things.
Right.
Putting it out means you're saying it's a referendum, it's mandatory. This is,
So I guess when will the referendum, permissive referendum begin and end?
that really did. Okay, I think there's a little bit of confusion. If the board passes this tonight, the public has 30 days, calendar days, to submit the proper paperwork and this proper number of people to petition. It depends on when that is then accepted as to when the referendum would happen, because if it's so many days before the general election, it's done at the general election. If it's not, then you have like a 60 to 90 day time period. It depends on the date. There's a full calculation involved there.
So what you're saying is that if we agree to this, the public has 30 days to decide whether or not they want to do a petition for a public referendum.
I'm saying that's what the law says.
Okay? So I would guess they would need the information within that 30 days so that they would know whether or not they want to just let it be permissive or they want to file a petition. That's the point I'm making.
I guess the question is, regardless of the details, and I hear what you're saying, but is a village resident comfortable with the village taking out some loan of some sort? I think that's just the general question. Are they? We don't know. Some are, some might not be. It says generally what it's for. Are people comfortable with that? Then there's that additional process of, hey, we are going to do this. It'll be part of a meeting. They can speak on that at the meeting related to that when we finally get to that point.
Yep.
So I think.
But at that point, if they wanted to petition for a public referendum, it's too late.
No, they can petition if they want to now.
Not in July.
Not in July. Well,
But
whatever.
again, this board is not obligated, and I'm saying this just from a legal perspective, in July to do anything. I'm saying July is the first. You could, if you wanted to, enter into a contract. You could, if you wanted to, issue the $3 million.
I understand all that.
Well, I just don't think you can. You do, because I'm hearing that you don't. That's why I'm trying to.
Well, I think we're talking apples and oranges.
We're not though. What you have before you is a resolution that authorizes the board, if you so choose, to issue bonds to purchase the fire truck.
So I'm reading from the resolution, and it says, now therefore be it resolved, number one, the Board of Trustees of Village of Bald Spa, Saratoga County, New York, hereby authorize the purchase and
Yep.
financing of the purchase of one Pierce Enforcer Ascendant 100-foot mid-mount tower ladder fire truck not to exceed $3 million. It authorizes, so this vote authorizes the purchase and financing of this truck. It's not, so that's a significant step.
It authorizes, it doesn't
Exactly.
require.
No,
We're
I
not
know,
voting
but
on a
it's
truck tonight, guys.
it's
We're
in-
not voting on a truck tonight.
No, we're.
We are
voting on the
authorizing
ability.
a purchase.
We are authorizing a specific thing to be purchased with a $3 million
Yes, we are.
resolution at some point in time.
Right, we are.
This is the way it works. I don't know if you guys hadn't done big ticket items before before I was mayor, but I would assume the water tower, maybe?
The dump truck.
We are authorizing
Yeah.
a purchase. It is black and white, right in front of me. And the question is not just for what the public.
You are not purchasing it tonight.
I know that.
You just said we're
We are
authorizing a purchase.
authorizing a
You are
purchase.
authorizing the ability at a later
This-
date to purchase that.
This
Yeah,
is,
it's not funny, and it's not
This-
a small semantics thing. You are not authorizing the purchase tonight. You are authorizing the ability to make a purchase of this specific truck and model, because we have a $2.51 million cost on that truck. It could go up because of a couple of things that are listed in the contract that is included.
yep, so I'm hearing what you're saying, and then I'm reading from the black and white of what's in the attachments. It says we are authorizing the purchase of a truck. So that's all. Yeah, I understand we're not buying the truck tonight, but we are authorizing the purchase. And so to Sean's point, excuse me? Is there a conversation? we should
Yes,
have?
that I'm not talking to you, she asked a question.
I know, but we're,
Yes,
it's
you're
very
talking.
no, it's very distracting. So if you guys have a conversation you'd like to share, otherwise
Sure,
I'd
when you're
appreciate
done.
it if you could listen to what I'm saying.
Apologies then.
I'm all right, I can wait.
You didn't have a legal question. She had a legal question, I answered her legal question.
Well, maybe we all would like the answer.
I asked what, will make sure this is available for people to see before any referendum is, if it goes to a referendum. And then, not only that though, what is this language? Carla's saying it's legally required language, so that's all we were discussing.
And I agree, and what
So-
I'm saying is supplemental to this, so that people can make an informed, educated decision about whether they want to petition for a public referendum. There needs to be some financial
I
information.
feel like either they wanna spend it or not, and that might be their deciding factor.
Well, they
I'm
might want to
confused
know
by
where
that.
the money's coming from and
Yeah.
how much it's
And
gonna cost them.
Even
It
before,
come from
sorry.
Come from a bond.
bond.
Even before, well,
But
the
how's
bonds
the
cost
bond getting
money.
paid for?
You
So-
did get my partner's email today,
So-
right, that he answered that question?
No, he
Because you
didn't.
did respond, thank you,
he-
Mr. Palchowitz.
Yeah, I said, yeah, I
Okay,
read
so
it.
you got it.
I read what he sent. It did not answer or satisfy the question that we are bringing to the board now.
Did you,
And one
did
of
you
the-
call him and he didn't respond? I just wanna know,
What?
if
He did respond. and
no,
I
after
said
that,
thank
did you call him
He was
because
saying
he
it
likes
was
to
complete.
respond?
No,
He was
I didn't
suggesting it was
call
a
him.
complete answer of some sort.
Yeah.
I said he spoke to one issue and not exactly, he did say that we are, that the actual purchase will be later in time. That is true.
Correct.
But when
Right.
I'm reading the resolution that we were about to vote on, it talks about authorizing it didn't say authorizing anything else except the purchase and financing of the truck. So that is what I assume we are gonna vote on, because that's what's in the resolution we're
Wait,
voting on.
stop. What are you assuming we're voting on?
The authorization of the purchase and financing of this truck for not to exceed $3 million.
So I can speak to that if you'd like.
Please, do, go ahead.
The local finance law requires that language to be in a serial bond resolution. You can't just authorize a financing if you don't have something to purchase. So the authorization is to purchase and finance, but solely in there to finance. You're not actually purchasing. Once this gets passed, and if it goes through the 50-day period, then the board has to do another resolution actually authorizing the purchase pursuant to the contract and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract. That's not in this resolution. You're not authorizing the mayor to sign the contract in this resolution.
And
In fact, you cannot do that. You can't have him sign the contract until you have the appropriation, which you won't have for 50 days.
The parallel situation is a specific versus a type reserve. Here, this is a specific resolution per se, because it's specifying the specific thing we're buying. That's why the permissive referendum is upfront in these scenarios, because we've identified the specific use for the money if we approve it at a later date. A specific reserve is similar to it in that we are specifying a specific category, and that permissive referendum is upfront, which allows us to go spend it as long as we're spending it for that category, or trucks specifically, to do it without a permissive referendum in the future. So basically, we're dispensing with that aspect of it upfront in these scenarios.
No, I understand, and I understand this is not the last step in the whole process, but just to back up a step and to speak in parallel to what Sean is saying, I feel in order for me to even vote on this initial step, it would be helpful to have additional numbers. So for example, so I came up with some numbers, for $3 million for 20 years at 4%, the cost is about $220,000 a year. I believe our current debt service is about $180,000 for the current truck, which I think will end in July 2027 or somewhere in there. And currently the towns are covering that $180,000 for the most part. So we're talking about potentially another $40,000, but the purchase of the ladder truck will probably happen after the debt is retired for this 180. So we're talking about 40,000 more than what we're currently doing. So even if, and I know the town of Milton, they've offered a 5-year contract that increases 5% a year. They and the town of Ballston are both willing and able to help fund this truck, but it does, it would be helpful to just, have this kind of conversation. How much is it gonna cost? It sounds like about $220,000 a year. Roughly how much, so town of Milton covers like 60% or so of the fire bill, or somewhere in there, and Ballston's 30, and we're another 100,000 or so. And so maybe we're covering 10 or 20% of this. So it sounds like it's very affordable, in that the town of Milton and town of Ballston will be covering the vast majority. So I'm not against this purchase, but that's the kind of conversation that I think would be helpful for us to have as a group prior to voting on any step on the way to this. And it would be helpful for the village to hear, oh, okay, town of Ballston's paying over half of this, and town of Ballston's paying a big chunk of the other. And so the village is really not going to be on the hook for $3 million.
No, the village is always on the hook for $3 million.
Well, they're not going to be paying the debt service.
If I may, because you're making a statement that is technically not true. The village is on the hook for $3 million.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say
Right,
town of
that's
Milton
true. No, you're
or
right, you're
town
right.
of Ballston doesn't want to extend their contracts for some reason. The village is on the hook for $3 million.
Right.
Make no mistake about
No,
that.
that's true.
However, we go to the towns and say, hey, we want to provide fire protection for your protection zones that we're normally protecting. We negotiate contracts based on that. Yes, the town of Milton did offer 5%, but not on assessment growth, and that's discussion right now, how to make sure that assessment growth, which we all know in the town of Milton is especially high right now, how to ensure that those effects are carried through the numbers. And town of Ballston's actually concerned about the idea that assessment growth isn't being included, because they'll never reach the town of Ballston's current $1.12 that they're giving to the village in 5 years if they don't include assessment growth. And so again, if the idea is to get parity, it wouldn't be there. That's a discussion, we're working on it. It's basically, we're at a difference of 2% right now.
Yeah, I do think that the board majority was okay with that 5-year plan.
Can I finish? I don't believe that's the case, because we're still trying and talking right now with the town on that. However, long story short is, we're trying to make sure that we can do this. We're trying to also look at the low staff possibilities down the line, try and make sure that we have enough for everything. We also have to go back and fix the tax situation to make sure that we match the school district and the towns and other municipalities and municipal entities with giving the first responders their 10% discount on their property taxes down the line too. I mean, a number of things we've got to do, but get back to the instant issue. The village is on the hook for $3 million. That's the question in front of us always. It's our purse strings. We're working with the fire department right now to make sure we get sufficient reserves going. They've got $250,000 currently, plus whatever they don't use in this current fiscal year. We think they'll may actually have a little bit left over. We're working on that. We'll get a specific number in October when the AFR comes out, and then move that over. We're getting those specific lines actually finished up with LGSS. Just saw that last week. Melissa's working with the other Melissa, LGSS, with that. So we're gonna make sure that is intact and good to go for both that and water towers. And long story short is they should have, because of some of the things you pointed out, hopefully closer to $1 million in reserve by that point. Plus the assistance from the other, from the towns to the degree that we can afford both that and a low SAP in that situation. But there is another truck purchase to be made probably in the next 3 years, 4 years. Mike Bayshore had full schedule of trucks in their futures, or when the timeline is probably to have to do a new purchase. So these aren't the last 2 trucks to come for the next 5 years. There's something else that's ready to go. That's of a lesser cost, obviously. This is the granddaddy of them all, as they call the Rose Bowl. Well, that's what we have with this ladder truck coming up.
Yeah, okay.
So we are in a good position, but we are on the hook for it. Don't ever think otherwise. And that's why our position here as a fire protection provider is important in terms of making sure that we're getting sufficient revenue in to make this work for everybody's sake in the towns and in the village. And the village puts in all the administrative expense, so it's more than 10%. It's a lot more than 10% because we do a lot of stuff for them as well.
All right, but my basic point is this kind of conversation about how much the village and the villagers can expect to pay for this purchase is a good conversation to have. And it's good to have it before the vote is required at a meeting.
Well, this morning you emailed me questions about what
I just got this on Friday.
This morning, and we've been talking about this truck for 2 years.
This was in the attachments Friday evening.
Okay, we've been talking about this truck for 2 years. It was part of
this conversation.
It was part of the executive summary provided with the budget with the $12.5 million capital plan. It's been discussed and out there.
When the actual decision comes up, it should be preceded by a conversation about that specific decision in time. And all I'm saying is it would be helpful for the democratic process and transparency to have a conversation like this in public, or at least with the board, that we then can share with other people, with the public, about what the potential estimated cost will be, and not just say we're on the hook for $3 million. The other piece is the reserve fund, and so that was alarming when you said that was being maintained by hand. I feel like the reserve fund needs to be put in its proper place prior to moving forward with a truck. It sounds like you're saying it's going to be. I also think part of the reserve fund, and I pointed this out when the reserve fund was created, it's supposed to, according to the controller, have a state the source of funding for that reserve fund. It did not, and it should be part of that reserve fund
Are you saying
policy.
that legal made a mistake? Is that what you're suggesting here?
And so that still needs to be done. So we need to, and what I would say is that reserve fund needs to be funded in a straightforward, transparent way, not back-ended off of fire operational, equipment and building expenses. Why don't we just have a policy about putting a certain amount in, whether it's 50 or 100,000 a year, which sounds like
because
plenty.
When you put it in, you can't take it out.
We are planning multiple purchases, as you just said, so that's how we will take it out.
They have to still operate, Ben. So if you're so concerned about who's on the hook for something, let's say we put in too much money into the reserve, then the village really is on the hook, because that money only can come for operational expenses from us at that point.
We'll always
And you're
have,
talking in a scenario of a village that doesn't have a very robust fund balance. Yes, that would be a problem. That's not a problem we have.
Part of your fund balance is their $250,000, first off, so it's being shifted over to the right spot. The other issue is that, yes, actually, we're spending some of the fund balance as part of the capital plan if we follow through with that. We have a $4 million building that we need to build over there. $500,000 here, you're sitting in $750,000 for renovations, $1 million for sidewalks, $3.5 million for fire trucks. That's not all of it either.
that's why we need these conversations about expenses up front,
Ben,
because
can I say something here
there's
for 1 second?
so many different priorities.
You
The
seem
timing-
to have ignored entirely
timing
the
of
executive
the-
summary that detailed
Oh, I look at that.
pages.
Well,
That
first of all,
executive summary
doesn't
didn't
detail.
correspond to your
Guys,
budget very
guys,
well.
don't
That
yell.
was not a
Don't yell.
very good
There's no
executive
time.
No,
summary
it's not.
to indicate what was actually in the budget, Frank. And so, for example,
Can I get a motion to pass the resolution, the attached resolution for the serial bond dated May 12, 2025? Trustee
and,
Fandesa, trustee Price Bush.
can we get a record of activities for the reserve fund? If I, just a record of what's gone in? I
We'll
assume
be
nothing's
putting
gone out.
officially 250,000, just I think it was $100 over 250. Kevin, I think I had stated to you, which is from the past 4 years, and then anything additional going in October. There you go. We have a motion and a
That's
second
not
on the
a
floor.
statement
Any
of
discussion?
activities, Frank.
I just think that basically what you described verbally would be excellent things to put in full documentation on our webpage at the start of the permissive referendum, so if the public has an interest or has a problem with it, they can be fully informed, including the scenarios that, well, if we don't have contracts with towns, this is what's it's gonna cost the village.
Can I see that in the last 8 years since you've been a trustee, when you've done that in the past? Thanks. Roll call.
Well, the reserve fund is not,
Trustee
it's
Baskin?
different 20. I'm gonna abstain because I don't like the process for, I support the purchase of a truck, but I don't want to support the process of just rubber stamping a loan, a bond, authorization for purchase without having the information provided
Just let them.
for an educated vote. So when I have to come up with the numbers myself as estimates, and I'm not, and there's no engagement with, determining the actual cost for village taxpayers, I'm going to abstain from those votes as I have done, previously.
Trustee Raymond?
Abstain.
Trustee Fandesa?
Yes.
Trustee Price Bush?
Yes.
Mayor Lawson?
I vote yes, and will state that everything that trustee Baskin has just said, it would be so nice to, believe in, except we get an email today for the first time ever asking for a discussion that's happened for
personal
years.
attack.
Excuse me, this is Mike.
Well, you're talking about me. All right, go ahead.
A discussion that's happened for years about purchasing a truck that the chief has been working on via Bay Shore or Crow for years with us, for the discussions that we've had with the towns ad nauseum to make sure we can afford in some way, shape, or form, and that I've been working on with them, with Bernadette's assistance, to make sure that we have everything covered. And finally, we've reached a point where we feel comfortable that we can do this and need to do this because public safety is at stake here, and abstaining from a public safety vote, I sure hope that hell has some pathway for that type of mentality, because
You need
holy
to
cow.
communicate with your board.
And that's a yes for me, so it's
Communicate with
3
your
to 0
board.
to 2, which goes to 3 to 2 because abstentions are no's for the vote count. It is approved, and we will make sure that it appears for the start of the third day from this referendum period. Fire department,
The public
thank you
should
for
ask
joining us
their
tonight.
questions.
Can I get a motion approving the quote from Bond Trees for Milton Ave tree replacements for $2,299.55 and authorizing the mayor to execute any related paperwork? Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Baskin, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion approving the quote from Bob's Trees for Wiswell Park trees and shrubbery for $3,822.20 and authorizing the mayor to execute any
I'll
related
make the
paperwork?
motion.
Trustee Baskin, trustee Fandesa, can I finish reading before you make the motion? Thank you. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion approving the amended final budget for fiscal year starting June 1st, 2025 and ending May 31st, 2026, which the Milton assessed value changed from $291,672,052 to $291,606,318 by request of Saratoga County, very slightly changing the ultimate tax rates for all property taxpayers by about 1/10 of a cent per $1,000 of assessed value. Final proposed values are available on the attached proposed amended final budget.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa.
I'll second.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion.
So here, I have a concern about the wording. It says motion to approving the awarded final budget for fiscal year 2025-26. So as you know, I'm not comfortable voting for the budget that was passed. I believe the wording would be more, and also the budget's already been passed, and the deadline is May 1st. I think the wording would be more appropriate to say motion to amend the final budget for fiscal year 25, not to approve the amended final budget.
No, you're approving the amended budget. You're approving
Is
the
that
amended,
even
because
possible?
it's called an amended budget. So you have to approve the actual document, and it's
What?
an amended budget.
Why do we not just approve an amendment to the budget?
Because the document's called amended budget.
What
So you're,
document?
We're
the
approving a document.
amended budget that you're approving.
That's actual, the name.
That's the name of the
Amended final
document.
budget. So does that mean that we're voting for that budget?
Yes.
All right, so as I indicated, I don't approve of that budget, but
So
I
vote
do,
no.
but I do approve of the amendment. So how am I able to vote for the amendment?
It's a new vote. It's a vote for an amended budget.
And you're allowed to do that after May 1st.
Is there a
100%, you can amend the budget anytime after the budget's been adopted. This happens all the time.
Is there anything to be amended in the motion or the second?
No.
Okay.
So every time we amend the budget, which I'm sure will happen repeatedly, we say vote to
No, this
approve the
document is
amended
a-
final budget.
This document is what is given to the county and to the state with respect to our tax rate. We caught an error that we did not receive, the treasurer or me, the changed assessment roll from January, which is not on the county's website. So this is a strange one for us. They must have had tax certs or something that occurred between July and January that slightly changed our assessment value. So they've asked us, the county has, to count for that back because otherwise our tax warrant would be wrong. So by their request, we're making this change because that's the number. Thankfully, Ballston's had not changed, so it's just a Milton issue, but it does affect both slightly in terms of the actual tax
All
rate.
right, so
In
it's a little,
response to his question, yes.
which question?
Every time you amend the budget, are you doing a motion to adopt the amended budget? Yes.
Roll call?
Trustee Baskin.
I'm gonna
That was
vote,
a grunt.
I'm gonna have to vote no because I voted no, and I still believe that the budget is bloated and does not follow best practice of the controller. That has not changed.
Trustee Raymond.
I will be voting no because the amendments do not reflect the changes I wanted originally,
Trustee
so.
Fandesa.
Yes.
Trustee Price Bush.
Yes.
Mayor Rossi.
Yes. They get a motion, 3-2, motion approved. Can I get a motion approving a water hookup for the new Town of Milton Highway Garage located at Rollins Street, north of Milltown Center, contingent on installation of a backflow preventer and a final review by the Village of Ballston Spa Water Department and/or Labella Engineering.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Couple cleanup things here for, I'm sorry, actually, can I get a motion approving a not to exceed $10,000, let me reword that. Can I get a motion to approve for Fisher Associates an increase of $10,000 in their not to exceed amount for work on the Village of Ballston Spa's zoning code and authorizing the mayor to execute any amendment necessary after review by the village attorney.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa.
I'll second.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion.
So, we're gonna talk about the timeline later. One of the bullets on the contract asking for, as a cause for asking for more money, Chris says, work with village's legal counsel to refine the first draft including addressing additional comments from the mayor to address important provisions. Would it be possible for you to email us your comments that you have emailed Chris concerning important provisions that are adding to the cost of this $10,000?
I'm not even sure what you're talking about. I told Carlos some of my concerns much like you did.
No,
And
he didn't, Sean did.
Sean did. Well, no, I think he had some that, you didn't? Okay,
I
well,
guess I
Sean's concerns, you sent some.
Yeah, it sounds like I haven't seen comments from you to Chris. I don't think the board
I haven't
has.
reached out to Chris. I don't talk to Chris except for he sent me this proposal, like after I said, send me a proposal. That's all I said to him.
It says here that he wants to work with village legal counsel to refine the first draft, including addressing additional comments from the mayor to address important provisions. So he
The
thinks.
mayor's comments went to me, I relayed them to Chris.
All right, could we all see them, please?
No, they were
Verbally.
verbal, and I sent you an
And you-
email last week
and-
with what the update was.
And you emailed Chris.
No, I talked to Chris, Chris and I talk on the telephone and we Google Meet.
Can someone,
Is there any reason why we're not documenting all this correspondence?
Cause I don't document every single conversation I have.
Well, something like this, wouldn't it be important?
if Chris is making changes to the zoning based on comments from you, Frank, whether they're written or verbal, it would be great to share those with the entire board, just to see.
You saw
what's going
them,
on.
they were in an email from our attorney to us, that's where those came from.
That was not addressed, those are not.
We'll talk
She
about
did
that
not
in the next
include
meeting.
in her email comments from you to Chris about important provisions in the zoning.
She basically melted down what he had and what I had in terms of things that had commonalities to them and said, here is a list of things that are being pushed over to Chris to be concerned about, such as downtown transition zone, the
All right, so
elimination
those
of
are
it,
the things.
things like that.
I can talk about
Okay.
this at that proper time in the meeting if you want to.
Sure.
Okay, all right. That's helpful to know that that's what he was
Ben,
referring
you can
to.
call me at any time, I've told you that.
I email you regularly.
You can call me at any
And I
time.
emailed you, the last time I emailed you, didn't answer my two
Okay, any
questions,
other-
so we'll answer them
Any other
today.
discussion on the motion in front of us? Roll call, I guess, just in case.
Trustee Baskin?
Yes.
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
Trustee Von Baker?
Yes.
Trustee Price Bush? Yes. Mayor Rossi?
Right after I have my Excedrin, yes. Can I get a motion authorizing the mayor execute the grant of easement to Niagara Mohawk Power Corporation and to execute any and all documents necessary to effectuate this conveyance related to the town of Milton Highway Garage? Trustee Fandesa, trustee Price Bush, discussion, all in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Cleanup, Liz, yes, LaBerge, for the current water tower situation and also, for his assistance with the cellular monopole stuff that is, interrelated because of the need to get the equipment off the tower. 30 Bath Street, we had 2, pipe bursts, I believe, in a short period of time. Quick Response, handled those, but we did get insurance, payback, but we have to show, or we're showing the, payout at this point finally after that. The specs of the truck, question. Kevin, do you want to address that with your truck, you have a truck committee member here, so do you want to talk about that inside my mayor's announcements for any questions?
Demo question?
Yeah, that was a demo question too, go ahead.
Mike?
Come on up.
So you want to discuss the demo question? Well, I guess the market or standard.
Yeah, so
issue.
we did, I'll have Assistant Chief Morrissey confirm my words to you. We did look at a demo, because we don't wanna wait 4 years if we don't have to, right? There's not a lot of demos out there, right? These things are being sold every day. But we had the rep here the other night, 3,500 ladder trucks a year they're trying to push, okay? There's not a lot of opportunity, but we did get our hands on one. We brought it into our village. We drove around our village, all right? I think many of us even struggle with a dually these days, or even a car, you know, to get through some of these streets that we have a challenge of. So it didn't have it was limited to some capabilities of operation that we currently have right now, which we don't want to go backwards, okay? And furthermore, the most important piece is 7 foot longer than our current piece right now. We have a hard enough time getting out of the firehouse as it is, and making a turn on some of these streets that we had, but at that point, this truck wasn't gonna work.
So we have looked at other opportunities. The truck that that the committee has spec'd out, we're just going with what we know we can get away with and operate functionally with, is 5 feet shorter. Okay, so that's a huge advantage for all of us, okay? And, so we did look at opportunities and we'll continue if they come up, come to us. But as of right now, we're dealing with a truck that's gonna be going on 30 years old if we don't do something here. All right, I know tonight's not the night to vote on a truck, but I can tell you right now through, NFPA 1901, that is a standard that we follow, okay? And 25 years mandatory, trucks be retired. All right, we're gonna be going on 30. We just got a new rescue truck back in 2020. Our old one was 33 years old. Our engine that we're receiving right now, that's going to be 30 years old. We didn't put ourselves in this situation. I appreciate it, and I picked up your comment tonight that you support, anything moving forward with this purchase,
I think it'll be affordable and.
the funding, I
important.
understand your concern, and Sean, with the funding and everything, yeah. We'll work on laying that out, Mayor, and, and we'll have answers,
Right.
but really important is that we follow the National Fire Protection Association right now, because, I don't wanna see anything, happen to one of our own firefighters, and I can tell you that this is the most important piece in our fleet, as you guys know.
With respect to questions about how this all works, we had a meeting last week with our rep from Pierce, Firematic, excuse me, thank you. And we just went down how it works, when it comes in a year early, it never has, never will probably, so it'll come in later before it comes in early. They will give us, send us pictures at production stages so that we begin to have advanced knowledge so that we can take the bonding out at the appropriate time. Probably need at least 3 months to get that executed is what we let them know. We do owe the money 10 days after delivery, once called for delivery. But again, it's a communication process at that point so that we can reach out to our fiscal advisors, say, okay, when do you want to start doing this work, because we're about to get this truck in hand. You need the collateral for the bond to be available or near available in that time. The bid process is through, why am I forgetting the consortium? Sourcewell, thank you. 3 years, I'm forgetting things already here. Through Sourcewell, which was acceptable for USDA of all things, and so it will be acceptable for state bid purposes. We learned through the comfort truck, so we will have a properly bid out piece of equipment. The only risk ultimately is in the contract, as you saw in the attachments, hopefully, there is a PPI indexing risk every year that could cause an increase in price, and that's why we're covering the extra $490,000 that way. There may also be a slight increase because we're breaking past the May 15th date, which was the secure time for that pricing, and they warned us that there probably will be an increase of up to about $20,000, it sounds like, by going to July, but because of the requirements, we have no choice on that but to do that. But we built in enough protection, because if we didn't have the protection, we'd have to do this all over again later on. If we exceeded $3 million, let's say we did it for 2.6, and it was 2.7, and we needed to do it, we'd have to do it all over again, and we wouldn't have necessarily the time to do the resolution at that point the same way with the 50 days we need, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the things to answer those questions as well. Whether or not we're going to take out bond or how we're going to do it, it really depends on the entirety of the situation for the village. When we get closer to that date, as to other things that we're going to be bonding or have debt riding on, if we're using bands to get up to a point where we can take out one big master bond, may not work, because we have to convert bands into bonds within 5 years, and this is going to start pressing the outer limits of that. So we may need 2 major bonds at a certain point if we're going to make all these renovations and rebuilds and everything else we're talking about. These are the things that we're trying to make sure we are doing the best possible things for the village, and the fire department's cooperated fully with us for that, and we appreciate that.
Chief, I really appreciate you saying that you're gonna put the numbers together and share that.
Yeah, we're not just gonna say, this is something we need, and we don't know how we're gonna pay for it, right? I mean, that's not fair, and the 2 towns are, that's why we're trying to work with a multi-year contract as well, and lay out payment plans and have everything in place.
you know.
Yeah, I'd like to see us
You
vote
know,
on
you know,
that.
the people of the village need to, you know, have that, as far as the towns as well. You know, the growth, and the way the growth of the towns are going, they're needing that truck just as bad as the village, okay? So, you know, we're constantly running, town of Milton, town of Ballston, they're putting up these 3-story buildings all over the place in their respective areas. Encore, you don't have a small house there, right? So I'm not gonna fight that off a 35-foot extension ladder, right? So that ladder truck needs to be in place. And so all these homes you guys are building up there in town of Milton, it's, you know, that's what the struggle to us as well, but hey, that's what we train for and that's what we're there for, so.
Well, even the Rask fire on Kaleen, excuse me, was basically the extension of the ladder over that.
That's right, and that was a
Fighting
primary
fires.
attack right there,
Yep.
that ladder truck, you know, and, I don't wanna, you know, tie up a lot of time, but the fatal that I dealt with last year up on Greenwood Drive.
Yep.
Kevin Du Bois, my other assistant chief, that's in the room tonight, he was stuck inside with 3 other firefighters, screaming for the roof to get open, okay? And the truck was in its way to get up to the roof to open it up, to ventilate for these guys, because they were caught inside of a hoarder house, and really a tough condition, so. You know, we got the roof opened up, did it make a difference?
Huge difference.
So, you know, that's what we're there to get my guys to go home safe to their families every night too, so.
I saw Rock City put out a thank you to you among others
We've been up since
today.
1:30 this morning.
I know you have.
Usually fire and we haven't been to bed yet. so
Happy
it's-
birthday, huh?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Is there some big thing happening at the end of Ballston Ave? Is it-
Garrett, it was on Garrett Road.
Tonight,
on
Garrett
Garrett.
Road, we had a car,
Yeah.
a motor vehicle accident on 6 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other, good, Mike?
Thanks for your service.
Seriously, thanks for all you do for us guys.
Yes.
Updates further here, Wiswall Park, the pavement bricks and the base for the pavilion are pretty much done. The flagpole is being finished up in the retaining mode. We have a flag ready to go any day now to go up on that. The next steps are, to be specific, the fountain to be delivered and installed probably within the next 2 weeks, perhaps the next week. Tree installation and some of the things that we voted on tonight will be installed with the assistance of our back truck on the back end, especially of the park, over the next week or so as well. Now that the rain has subsided, I say that and watch it just pour down. We also have the sod coming in on May 23rd that we voted on a couple meetings ago, I believe it was now. And the pavilion may be slightly late compared to the rest of it, but that's because they had to order a lot of stuff related to it. But normally it would have been a July thing, but we've worked with them, make sure that we're gonna hopefully be in mid-June. If there's a need for the first farmer's market to have cover at the pavilion area, I've stated that we'll figure out a way to get a tent over there, over that base for them in that situation. But we're well on our way here. Bushes will also be installed probably after sod to reduce some of the issues that Caitlin was spotting with putting the bushes in first and then sod. She thinks that it should be the reverse on that. We're just working with DPW to ensure that. Also replacing the electric panel to make sure that we have the right connections finally in park to carry things like a deep fryer type situation, which we learned last year the hard way. Our current load was not primed for, but also to have the street lights or the light standards in there when we get them. We've got conduit already going, 2 different types of electrical connections, one specifically for the light standard itself, and then one for any electrical outlets we put on those light standards. They're not the same connection because the needs and the requirements are different for those 2 electrical connections. So we've literally run conduit with 2 different types of electrical connections going through to all those spaces, and we're working to get light standards, and we're trying now, but it'll probably be the fall when they come in to get matching light standards to what you see along the street. They don't make those anymore. In fact, we're gonna get extras probably, or at least propose that, to make sure that we can replace those that need it along the street. We're trying to do as close a match as we can because we just can't even get parts anymore for
Are
this.
you switching them to LED?
I believe they already were switched to LED.
they were?
Yeah, but I think that just the actual poles themselves just aren't made anymore in the parks that go with it. And park benches and picnic table stuff that was in the park will be returning there. In the fall, we will work on buying new stuff related to that as well. But we're going to make sure that this is going to be a very usable park this summer. DPW has done a phenomenal job with JH when they were out there, and everybody else worked with our fountain maker, make sure that was accommodated well, and the base of the pavilion to make sure we had the sonotubes in the right spot. Mike Morrissey's been taking care of the electrical panel because that's one of his specialties. Steve Brooks has been managing that flagpole along with Tyler, who's been priming and painting it. I mean, it's been a full-on cooperation move here, and it's coming together so well. I've heard so many compliments about it. So thank you to them, thank you to JH, thanks to everybody that's taken a part and piece of this situation. We do truly appreciate that. The library. We are working right now, we're working with Jason Busick on the variance. We talked with our insurance adjuster. Asbestos mitigation is not covered, and so we are trying to make sure we're doing any asbestos removal in the most convenient and efficient way possible, which might mean holding off on some of the Surf Pro work that's being done to make sure we get what's in the attic out and go from a top to bottom approach instead of starting at the bottom of the building and then going to the top and risk having to go back to the bottom of the building for anything that spills downward on it. So we'd also try to package the roof in the variance as well, because the best practice is to get every piece of work needed into the variance, submit it to the state, get your approval, and go at that point. Our goal is June 30th. May not happen, but we're going to make sure that we get this open at some point in the summer at this pace. And Jason just texted me back that he's going to get some more information to try to get that variance out tomorrow. He'll get the information to try to work that forward. Thanks to him. He has a full-time job as much as anybody out there, but he's dedicating a lot of time and effort on that. And Mary may have some more later on in her liaison report. We were lucky this weekend. We were near flood stage, probably about the worst I can remember in terms of a long-term rain event. We've had some pretty bad things up at Chesterwood Court before that flooded out that area temporarily until the system catches up with itself. We just had such a prolonged period of rain over 5 days last week that we were fortunate that we did not break the banks at Kelly Park, but we did close it out of consideration for the possibility of that problem, or to also protect the turf out there. And we thank Hope for Children, the Mayor's Task Force, for delaying that until hopefully this Saturday, assuming that that 10% chance of rain that's currently going from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. stays 10% or less through the rest of the week, and we'll have a great event hopefully at that point. But we've had some byproducts of the rain, water main break on Sunday. We still have some brownish water in certain areas that might be from some of the agitation of the system that occurred from yesterday's water main break, even affecting Saratoga Avenue right now a little bit. Just before the meeting, I was getting a message about a couple of people that were experiencing that over there. So, again, we're fortunate that it wasn't worse, but obviously there are effects on that. And again, thanks to DPW for coming out on a Sunday morning, essentially, and or Saturday morning, excuse me, and handling that situation as it was developing as well. It's been a tussle, but they've been handling everything thrown at them between that snowfall, unending snowfall in the winter, and everything else that's come at them. So thanks to them as well. That's all I got. Treasurer's report, I will get back to in a second. We'll go to liaison reports first. I have to go back and find it here. So we'll go liaison reports, and Bernadette, go ahead.
Sure. To start, our Brownfield Opportunity Area Workshop, or also it's known as Revitalize the Spa. We are having a public workshop on May 21st. Doors open at 6:30. There'll be pizza and some activities for children, but the actual meeting starts at 7 o'clock. Labella is our consultant, Norbel. She will explain what a BOA is and describe to the community what we've been working on, and also share kind of some visioning work that the committee has done at the last meeting. It'll be interactive as well. There'll be opportunities. We want public input, so we encourage people to come. There's stuff to do, and we certainly want to gather that information. Again, that's the 21st. The actual meeting starts at 7 o'clock, but doors open at 6:30, and that will be at 50 West High Street in the Cornell Cooperative space where we had our ZAC public
Auditorium.
Yeah, is that what they call it?
Yep.
Auditorium. or where you go to vote early. So they've been doing a lot of good work, and just to describe what this is briefly, it's a program that the state has given our village a grant for. It's a study process. We look at a certain footprint and look at sites that really need, some attention, whether they be previously brownfield sites, or in some cases underutilized spaces. And it is, once we go through this process, the Department of State would essentially approve that we did this. And what that does is it gives us a certain status. It opens up tax incentives, tax credits for folks that are investing into these properties to rehab them and redevelop them. Also, it gives the village some preferential status for any grant applications, especially something like New York Forward or anything else from Empire State Development. So looking forward to that. We have a really great group. They've been working really hard. You'll probably see some lawn signs out. We kind of took your idea and did lawn signs. And also moving forward, the BSBPA, they have on the 20th, so the day before at 8 to 9:30, they're having a discussion inside Ballston Spot Series where they're going to be talking about economic development, what's happening, and that's a free event. That's at the Milton Community Center. That's in partnership with the Capital Region, what do you call it? Chamber. Thank you. Thank you, Cisco. As you heard some of our work from our fire department, this is the report for April. There was 52 emergency calls in the month. So far for this year, there's been 180 responses. Last month, there were 5 reported structure fires, and also they did 6 mutual aid responses, and there were 6 motor vehicle accidents. And of course, there's always, additional sort of responses that they are, calling to. And then for total, there is a 350 plus man hours of emergency response from our volunteers. The training of the last month, there's 2 department drills, 6 individual company trainings, which equates to 225 plus man hours completed. We have some folks doing specialized training. We have a new member who completed their basic exterior firefighting operations training class. We also have some folks that have been in vehicle extrication courses, as well as other rescue tech trainings and aerial apparatus trainings. As mentioned, the ladder truck, they are getting a master stream nozzle mounted for that vehicle, and they continue to look at some repairs, such as tire replacement and some other additional things. And as always, they do a really great job about public education, about fire safety and just general safety, and they're working with the county sheriff's department as well as our school district for some smart choices demonstrations. So we are very thankful for all their time, and that's it for me.
We go back to the treasurer's report for 1 second, so I don't forget to do this. Water sewer office is starting to prepare printing and sorting of meter cards. They'll be sent to residents by June 1st. Please contact village office if you'd like to receive your bill via email, which is an option. Sales tax collections in New York State. Melissa actually included a very good first quarter report from the county, so I'm not going to belabor that. It is in the attachments. And also the adopted budget was amended, and it explains why the assessment roll needed to be amended. So that treasurer's report is in the attachments. And Bert, I forgot one thing.
Please put it on your calendar. The first day of the farmer's market is June 14th.
It's on mine.
It's on yours. It better be. And the market's going to run until October 4th, Thursdays from 3 to 6. And then Saturdays 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I hang out there way too long, so come and eat some vegetables.
And to re-announce the village-wide garage sale, which is not officially put on by the village, but just to clarify dates, because we do get the question often, will be the 14th and 15th of June, the second full weekend of June this year. We worked with BSBPA to make sure that we were all on the same page, and that we were, so that's when it'll be. Now, Mary, sorry about that.
That's okay. As
the mayor had mentioned Hope for Children will be held this Saturday, May 17th, Kelly Park, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. Hoping for dryness. The library, they're still busy cleaning up, and the repairs that they're, well, I guess DPW and ServPro, everyone is involved. And the library staff has been planning summer programs, so they have summer reading clubs for kids, teens, and adults. And some of the planned programs they have are a royalty party for kids, gem decorating journals and or book covers, and paint and pass for
Kevin,
kids.
stick around for a second.
What's that?
Stick around for a second. Sorry to interrupt
Oh,
you.
no, that's
It's a man's birthday.
Yeah, well, I'm about to be a party pooper in a second. Keep going.
Tweens and teens, story time at Kelly Park for the little kids, and that's gonna be starting July 3rd through the 24th. And for adults, they have Uber Eats. It's like blind date with a book with a takeout spin, and each participant will receive a raffle ticket for each review they submit. Fern Hurley from Captain will be joining us our next meeting to let us know what Captain does for our community and how
Great.
volunteers are needed.
Next
Ballston
meeting
areas-
here?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Ballston area seniors, new members are still welcome, and there's 2 tickets left for a Dutch Apple Cruise on Wednesday, this Wednesday, May 14th. You can contact Mary Egan, and their phone number there is 518-885-4229. And one thing to add on Officers Ackley's presentation is that the Office of Emergency Management becomes an official committee. It opens up a lot more state grants for the village.
An office or is it a committee? It's an office. Department, what is it?
For the Office of Emergency Management? Yeah.
Yes, office, not committee.
Office.
Okay, going out of order, but out of respect for Kevin, I have some bad news. The referendum vote, or permissive referendum vote, required 2/3, which is 66.7% of the body. 60% of the body approved it, and therefore the resolution failed.
An abstention, and I verified this, I was concerned about this, and I verified it with Larry, our bond counsel, and he specifically says you need a 2/3 vote. It did not pass. There's an exception for a 3/5 vote when the resolution is subject to mandatory referendum, or the board authorizes mandatory, which is not what this is. So it has to be a 4 out of 5, and with the 2 abstentions, that does not pass.
Ben or Sean, would you like to make a motion for reconsideration?
Would you like to share information with us prior to these votes?
We have, Ben.
No, you haven't. You put this on a Friday afternoon with a resolution for $3 million without any information to support that when it comes to the cost of this village.
So that's no. Sean, would you like
No,
to?
that's a conditional, so you won't provide information to make a transparent decision?
The fire chief has just told you that he will be providing it as much as anybody's gonna be providing it, and he will, he has. And again, this is not, Mike Bayshore would bend over backward with his numbers for this board always. We attempted to let the fire department manage their funding and work with the fire department in that whole situation. Because over the last 2 decades, especially, the biggest criticism on the whole fire-village relationship has been that they feel that the village has micromanaged their money and even maybe used their money for other things. We've gone way into the other direction to allow them to have a certain level of autonomy inside our system, working with them at all times. When they need something, we show up and do what we need to do. But we make sure that Kevin, Mike Bayshore before him, Kevin before him, basically had what they needed, and they would report to us on how it all worked. So, Kevin, do you want to say anything? Go ahead.
I know past Chief Bayshore did lay out a payment plan, once the truck was to come in, I don't know if you've seen it.
I have not seen
Projected
that.
till,
It's a 12-year plan,
Right,
yeah.
you know, so,
And I do recall,
I don't know if you saw
recall the
it,
details.
John, yeah.
But if we could get that posted on the village website, I have no problem voting for this. I just want the public to be informed. That's all.
When did that get sent?
That was
few years ago.
A few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, Mike,
The
Mike drafted this up, you know, and
Right.
because he's always trying to do whatever he
Right.
can to show the village.
So that'd be great to.
So I know that our finances, or our
Right.
budget is
Right.
able to handle this,
Right.
you know,
Right.
down the road. So I
Is-
mean, by prolonging this tonight,
Mhm.
it's just gonna keep prolonging it, you know, and we're not voting on the truck tonight, we're just voting to move forward.
Right.
Right.
Is there,
And that's all we're looking at.
so is there emergency, or can we get those numbers and then we vote at the next meeting?
You definitely have them at the next meeting, I would imagine, or could have them to you.
All right, why don't we just vote
But I
on
just
this the
think
next
to keep
meeting?
prolonging stuff here, it's just
Well, it would just be
2
one.
weeks, 3 weeks, 4
Well-
weeks, it all adds up.
It's just the idea that, you know, we are responsible for the fiscal, the finances of this community, and, in order for us to do our job, it's helpful to have this kind of information, and it's transparent to the residents. So if it's not a huge problem, I would like to,
As
to
committed
go
to
through
you
that
and the
process,
village, you
to go
got my
through-
word that you'll have it.
Chief,
Can I allow
actually,
further-
yeah, I mean, we've discussed this, the longer we
absolutely.
wait, the
Well, that's the
pricing,
problem, and
that's
that,
the
you know,
problem, we're gonna get.
well, honestly,
2 weeks maybe.
you know, just to keep waiting 2 weeks, and then if you're not happy with that, we're gonna wait another 2 weeks, you know?
well, I
Pricing.
can tell you, that's my only, I have actually no problem purchasing this truck based on my numbers, but those are just things I came up with today. It sounds as if it's affordable and important, and everyone agrees to do it, so I would just like to encourage this village to follow a process that allows us to do our jobs in an educated way, so that when we make a vote, we actually know what we're voting for and what it's gonna cost the village. So
Well, it's
that's
not
my-
only that, you know, this is a referendum, the public should have all
And
the
the public should
information.
have this. Well, if we're told this, we can, you know, everyone will see it.
Can I get a motion to rescind the prior vote on the resolution?
motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion.
So I haven't heard any,
Can I,
yeah,
for
talk
a
to me
moment,
about
for
you
those
just said
here,
discussion.
well, it first was gonna require 90 seconds here, but, Carla, would you explain what that does?
It rescinds the prior vote as though it didn't happen. And so then the motion is available to be made again if a trustee wants to make it. So what you're asking for is decision on rescinding the vote, not decision on the new one if there's another one. If that makes
Right.
sense to the public.
Because it's a fresh motion, 90 seconds available for public comment for this motion and this motion only. Please raise your hand on Zoom or in the room if you would like to comment for 90 seconds. Seeing none, discussion between us.
So, I would like to, suggest that we do this, vote, in 2 weeks, which does not
This is
require,
not, my motion
versus
is
right now.
to rescind, so you want me to wait till next meeting to rescind the
No.
last motion?
No,
That's,
just to rescind it.
this is just a rescind.
Well, the only reason to rescind it is to redo it tonight. And what I'm saying is there's no reason to rescind it if we're gonna vote on it next week, next month, next meeting.
Roll call.
Trustee Baskin?
No,
Trustee Raymond?
because I have not heard a reason we cannot wait 2 weeks.
Yes,
Trustee Raymond?
yes.
Trustee, Trustee Fandesa?
Oh, yes, sorry.
That's okay. Trustee Chris Bush?
Yes.
Mayor Rossi?
Yes, on the previous vote on the motion for the resolution, the May 12th resolution, I should say, for fire truck is rescinded. I would entertain a motion to reconsider at this point, or to consider anew that resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush. Discussion, I will consider this a new motion for the purpose of public comment. 90 seconds again, available to anybody on Zoom or in the room. Mike?
Just a quick question. I think the material from Firematic indicated that the response was needed within 30 days of May 8th. So does that create any problems?
We, at least for the time we talked to him on last week, like I said, projected out that around July 4th would be the 50-day mark, and the next meeting would be a few days later. He had no issue with that, besides the May 15th cutoff for the initial price increase I discussed earlier on, the $20,000 increase. That would be probably happening on the 15th. They'll confirm that increase in the meantime. So that's the only risk right now for the July situation that we told them about. Now, if we push it into later July, I have no ability to tell you what happens there. Liz, your hand had gone up.
Yeah, no, Liz Gomez, 89.
You gotta get to the stage.
Or at least louder so that picks it up.
I'm a little confused as to the reason it has to be tonight, because Trustee Baskin is correct in you don't put it on an agenda for $3 million. It's a huge amount of money to approve the authorization for and not provide the background. You provide a pro forma that shows what you expect the timing, with the debt service, with how much is in your reserves. I know it's a pro forma, but that is the way people in business do things when they take out loans. And I think this village should do that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, discussion?
I think with Chief getting us information, you know, we can get this up very soon. And, no, sorry, but that was your concern, right, getting information
Yeah,
out?
well, I'd
And,
like a date.
I don't know, how much
What's
time, he's asking for a date, how much time do you think that would be needed?
When my fire commissioner and mayor are available this
Okay.
week, we'll sit down and, because we'll put them out, whether you get them through email to them.
Okay.
So they have an opportunity to take a look and see what we are.
Because, yeah, the main issue here, as soon as we vote for this, the 30 days starts for the public. So the sooner they can get the information on the website and look at it and be informed, you know, obviously that gives them more time to absorb the information, so.
Roll call on the, a new consideration of the May 12th resolution for the fire truck.
Trustee Baskin?
I'm going to abstain with the idea that this vote will happen in the next meeting with the information that we need to make an opinion available to us.
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
Trustee Fontaine?
Yes.
Trustee Price Bush?
Yes.
Mayor Rossi?
Yes. If a vote is 4-0 to 1, the 1 carries back to the law, or to the no column, for purposes of vote count. That makes it 4-1, which is an 80% approval, which is exceeding the 66.67% necessary. The resolution and motion attached to it carries. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
Thanks for your
Happy
numbers.
birthday.
Ben, we cut off liaison reports to you. Go ahead.
All right, I got a report from Caitlin of the Park and Tree Board. Park and Tree Board is so thrilled with how well the Phase 1 improvements in Liswell Park are coming together. Residents have been reaching out to us, telling us how beautiful the new walkways are. We thank JH Property Services for their skilled and impressively swift work. We are also so excited for everyone to see the handcrafted stone foundation by J. White Creations that is very nearly done and ready to install. But the biggest thanks goes to our DPW, whose contributions to this project are too plentiful to list, but without whom the project would have been impossible. It's all coming together to ensure that we have a beautiful, upgraded park ready for the public in early June. Speaking of Wiswall, the Park and Tree Board is hosting a work day in the park on Saturday, May 24th, with a rain date of Sunday, May 25th. Work is scheduled to begin at 9 a.m., but folks can trickle in and out
We
depending.
may need to actually talk to them about that, Ben, because we're not supposed to be in that sod in any measurable form for about a week, so they may have to reschedule that. We'll work on that with them. I apologize. I didn't catch wind of that one.
Some of the planting could be on the periphery where they don't.
That
have
might
to
be,
go on the
but
side.
they can't be inside that park much, so we just gotta be careful with that because we want the roots to take.
Okay, well,
Sorry.
if it happens, work is scheduled to begin at 9 a.m., but folks can trickle in and out depending on availability throughout the morning. The workday's aim is to plant annuals in the park in both containers and in the ground, so maybe they could do the containers. And to ensure the park is looking good and in bloom in time for its busy summer season, volunteers are encouraged to bring their own garden gloves, trowels, knee pads if they use them, and water to stay hydrated. More details will be posted soon.
Caitlin's promising they won't be on the grass.
Right.
Caitlin, do you wanna jump in, real quick? Obviously you're watching, if you wanna, just define, specifically what we're doing, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Sure can, thank you, sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. No, so I know that the park's gonna be closed because of the sod, and we obviously don't want to disrupt that. But we've got some containers that we want to plant in, as well as the internal circle where the Christmas tree will eventually be. So we'll be able to stay on the path and stay off the grass for that particular event.
Great, thank you. So one more time, let's announce the time, since now we're all on the same page on that, sorry.
May 24th at 9 a.m.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Caitlin.
Caitlin. Lastly, the Park and Tree Board is very excited that their Bee Spa in Bloom initiative is live. Bee Spa in Bloom is a new program sponsored by the Village Park and Tree Board. It will be a community-wide event aimed at brightening our village business district while building a sense of community through friendly competition. It's a chance for local businesses and/or building owners to be creative and to help beautify our village at the same time. Check out the Park and Tree Facebook page for more details, or reach out to them with any questions. So that's their update. And then the Committee on the Arts is sort of regrouping from its April Poetry Month, and they're working on a Saratoga Arts grant, digital village art map. They're working on village banners. They're trying to get any costs through before May 21st. And they're working on painted planters. And their next meeting is May 21st at 7 p.m. at Brookside Museum. And they're also going to be at the May 19th, I believe, 6:30 p.m. Bee Spa meeting at Brookside.
Thank you to Brookside
Yes.
Museum. They, reached out to them, explaining the library situation, and they're awesome in letting our arts committee to continue to meet there.
And thank you to the Arts Committee for all they did in the April Poetry Month.
Yeah.
They did a phenomenal job.
Oh yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah. Sean, DPW.
Okay, super brief. All the dips from the winter have been patched and paved, at least the first round. We'll see what summer brings. First round of brush pickup has gone through, and they're gonna go around again. The last day to put out is May 15th, so after that, you need to be bundled and grass clippings need to be bagged. Pool has been drained to get ready for the new filter. It's supposed to arrive on Tuesday. And the mayor mentioned the 2 water main breaks. One was on Grove and the other one was on Van Buren. And basically, again, the Wiswell Park's all ready for sod. So, and the usual bits and pieces that DPW does on a daily basis. So.
One thing I should clarify too, we've been continuing communication with CHPE with respect to East High Street and High Boulevard and kind of the issues that got created by the heavy trucks that crossed those streets for some period. Carl, I got to hear on this email where they have committed to doing the necessary redo work on those streets. They're assessing with their folks what that exactly means, and they're also going to get back to us on an additional community benefit, which was recommended, perhaps sidewalks or some sidewalk money in that zone to be utilized for the inconvenience that they were going through. So more on that later, but I just want everybody to know that it is still on the radar. We are working with them to make that happen, and they've been responsive with respect to it. It'll turn into basically most likely a settlement scenario in lieu of a litigation type thing. But we'll work on the exact mechanism to paper it up very soon. Okay, I'm going to try to short circuit old business here with the Office of Emergency Management to say this. Why don't we all go back, read through all the materials that Ed Ackley had provided and presented and everything else. By email, let's see if there's anything that needs to be changed in the meantime, and try to be prepared to vote on where we're going with things in the next meeting. let's let Mary be kind of the conduit, since she's kind of been all along here, to any questions you have or any concerns, and we'll let her kind of manage that for anything you've got by email between this and the next meeting on the 27th. Don't forget, not the 26th, because of Memorial Day on the 26th.
So the motion will be considering is whether to create an office, or is there?
We'll get specific on that. I'm gonna talk to Carla a little bit more in depth about how to manage this, no pun intended, but just to make sure that we are doing it the right way ultimately, so.
Yeah, the current resolution has way too much stuff in there right now.
Okay, so we'll work on that too, but I think the materials it gives a good explainer of what he's looking to do. Like animal control officer is involved in there, we don't really have one, we use Milton's or Malta's depending on if he's not available, but you know, things like that. Fiscal year is wrong in there, it says January 1st to December 31st, so minor stuff too. Well, like I said, read through it, see what you find. If you find something that needs to be changed or you're concerned about, let us know, we got 2 weeks here.
Yeah, the one thing I would think is we probably should, if there's OEMs for Ballston and Milton, that we should kind of have an idea what they are, because just to eliminate redundancies, if, you know, we don't need to recreate the wheel if we already have access to it.
Sure. Sounds good. Zoning schedule, I'll let you take it home.
Sure. The board is aware of an email I sent last week, answering a whole bunch of questions that they asked. I didn't get any response. I got thank yous, so I appreciate that from some folks. Ben, with respect to the email you sent me on Thursday, you sent it to me. I realized it was in my draft, so I just sent it to you, my response, so I apologize that it wasn't responded right away, but I did respond. I apologize. I thought it was in the drafts. I did include the rest of the board on this. You guys weren't involved, so I wanted to include the rest of you. With respect to the timeline, Chris and I did have a conversation. There were 78 pages of comments, 26 from one individual, 15 from another individual, and the rest from a smattering of folks. And so that's all online. You all have access to that. You, meaning the public, all has access to that. Chris and I sat down, went through everything, and proposed a new timeline, kicking everything out about a month, because there was a lot of public comment, and that was the goal. So I did confer with the mayor, because it was his schedule to begin with, and I said, you know, we need to keep this out for a month, we need to be able to do this. He agreed.
That, to me, again, just to be clear to everybody, it's about having groundwork of a process or framework of a process in front of us to keep us on some kind of leash about timing and everything else. It's not inflexible, and as you saw here, provide good reasons, provide good comments from the public. Yeah, we'll extend a little bit here to make sure that we get everything incorporated. Some new stuff written in for open spaces, that was a common one.
Well, I'll go through that.
Go for it. Thank you.
So the board has the amended timeline for the public's information. There was a question raised both at the Historic Commission meeting that last week and again tonight with respect to where is the legal response, well, the legal comments. Well, the legal comments go to the board. They go to the board. It's legal advice. It goes to the board. So the public's not going to see my direct legal advice unless the board as a whole decides to share it. That's up to them. The timeline has been changed. I didn't hear anything from anyone else. There was a couple things that were asked again at Marilyn, your comments tonight were also the same comments that were raised, my understanding, at the Historic District Commission meeting. I don't know why you asked them because they wouldn't know, but I can address them tonight. And there were a lot of the comments, were some comments that I think some of the trustees raised as well, so I responded to them. The planning board, of course, is going to meet. I don't know why they wouldn't meet by meeting. I no reason to believe they wouldn't meet by a meeting because they're required to meet by a meeting and they can't make a decision without a meeting, and they're going to make a decision, so I don't know why they wouldn't. With respect to the rest of the timeline that's in there, Chris and I are working with all of the information. I have advised the board that they will have the next draft, which will incorporate all the comments or why they weren't incorporated by the end of this month, by the 30th, not the 31st, or by the 31st, whichever day is the Friday. They will have that at that point to review.
This is Saturday, I think, 31st or 30th.
So the 30th, that's why I wanted to do it, the 30th. Of course, I have also advised the board that there are a couple things that Chris and I are specifically major things, and I'll advise the rest of the public as well. The downtown transition zone itself is going to be removed. And this is all based on comments made either by the public at the meeting, at the workshop, by the public online, by emails or conversations I have had with the board, or members, certain members of the board. So remove the downtown transition zone, create an open space zone, that was a big one, so he's going to create an open space zoning district. Change the name from Mohegan Hills back to the R2S zone, remove any reference to a PDD. Prohibit short-term rentals anywhere in the village except bed and breakfasts. Incorporate any language currently in the code regarding ADUs if there are any, I don't believe there is. And place the current historic commission chapter 34, I think it is, verbatim into the current code. That was always the intent. So that's going to be put in there. There are other changes as well. There's some consistency changes. There's some notice things. One of the things that I'm going to put in that came up this past week when we realized with respect to notice, there's no notice requirements for public hearings in your code, which is ridiculous.
So I'm requesting 300 feet be consistent with Milton to be inserted in that.
Right, so the village, for example, has been giving folks notices, for zoning and planning for 100 feet. They're not even required to do that, but they've been doing that. We realized that this past couple weeks that it wasn't even required, but so we are putting things like that into the code. There's a lot of other things that I'm working with Chris on, so.
Are we okay with cannabis not within 500 feet, cannabis sales not within 500 feet of parks? Are we all kind of on the same page there?
Or not with it.
Not to be sold within 500 feet.
Well,
Not.
if that could go, and somebody on this board could send me an email with that, because there's so much information. I don't think the public realizes, and I appreciate it. I don't think the public and the ZAC realize how much work this is now for us to incorporate all of this information. So we are doing it. We have extended it for 30 days. So I just want the public to be aware that this is a fluid motion, that these timelines are not set in stone. So right now it's the 30th, and we're looking at, ultimately the middle of August instead of the middle of July, middle of August for the final. One of the other reasons of doing this is, as I advised the board, at the same time we're doing this, we're simultaneously, I'm drafting the historic commission part, using the model law, portions of the model law, and portions of the current code, and portions of the comments that people raised, and incorporating all of that into the new one so we can simultaneously look at the two of these together in the same point, keeping the historic one separate so it can have its own public hearing, its own local law for additional transparency and additional comments by the public.
What's your timing for that, for the public hearing for that?
Simultaneously.
When it gets done, it's done. And right now, we're making sure the local zoning, and we're gonna make sure there's the backstop protection to keep the current historic district.
The current one will be in it.
So if it doesn't go in tandem, it's not the end of the world. We've already got the protections built in still that exist.
More or less the same time.
I'm hoping to.
Liz, are you okay?
No.
Just, make sure you're okay.
I'm hoping to be able to get them around the same time. That has been my goal. But there's a lot of comments about historic commission, so it makes sense to have them separate and apart from this code, and to get this online as soon as possible. You have my timeline, Ben, which has all of the information in it as to when the public hearings will be set, all of that. There is a whole host of agencies that have to look at this before this board has a public hearing. Is that a big enough update?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to go through your updated schedule. Is there a mechanism?
Jeez, I sent it a week ago. You're supposed to look at these things right away and
What,
respond.
you were enjoying the rainy weather?
It was 11:57 at night too, I just wanna make it known.
Working hard, so.
She does, I will give her that any day of the week.
Is there a mechanism before it goes to the planning board that this next revision gets publicly posted?
That's in, again, it's in there, and in response to Ben's question, which echoed Liz's question today, almost verbatim, by the way, that echoed it. No, it shows me that there's people that are interested in this, and they wanna know the same answers, and that's fine. So, yes, what is gonna go to the public and on the website is the draft number 2. And as I indicated at the beginning of this whole process, and I've kind of tried to indicate throughout, you have your 78 pages. What Chris is doing is he's compiling that into, here's 50 people or 50 comments on this one issue. This is how it's been decided. This question was asked, this is the answer, and it's gonna be a running comment, just like every state agency does, when they do their regulations. This is the question and the issue, this is how it's being addressed. And that's gonna be on the website, it's gonna be presented to you folks by May 30th, and probably on the website the following Monday, for the public to look at.
And is there going to be a mechanism where people can comment on the second revision, like via email like we did
They can
before?
come to the board meeting, and that's all I know, I'm
Yeah,
not
they
in charge of
They
that.
can email stuff, sure. It's always a fluid situation until the final vote in that respect, and it gets to us.
Yeah, so
But it's not gonna be a further, it's my understanding, but it's the board's decision, we go through 5 or 6 iterations, and each time there's all of this information, and because a lot of it has to be, at some point, you have to let the consultants consult.
Understandably, but 2 times isn't multiple iterations. Doing it a second time and doing what, I thought the way that the emails were harvested this first time worked very well. And if, I would imagine there'd be far less emails, with
You are
this
very
second
optimistic.
revision.
I would say this,
I'm,
Sean. I would say,
half full guy, so.
I would say this, again, we will welcome people's
Yeah.
input at that
Yeah.
point as it starts progressing to the planning board and the county planning board, because at a certain point, we do have to start that process. Planning board will obviously take any, emails as well at that point for them to consider. And again, it'll come back to us at a certain point for a public hearing as well, and changes can be made in that process as well. So there are multiple opportunities still here.
I would request, I'm sorry, Ben, one more thing, and then you can, I would request that, the public not email Chris Cushel directly with
Yeah.
their comments.
I'm not sure why that's been
Because
happening.
we really need to have it centralized together, and knowing that there's public that's emailing directly to Chris, and finding out from Chris, yes, they were also part of this public, but I mean, it's kind of like when they're emailing me, I don't respond, because, sorry, I don't respond.
By the way, Jennifer did a tremendous job compiling all those, so she's waving in the back there.
She's basically saying, let's go, it's after 9 o'clock.
So my concern and request is, the current timeline has the next draft coming out May 30th and going to the planning board June 12th, which is a week, for us to process that whole thing. And, assuming, no, it's 1 week if you go to the Friday before, that's the 7th, and so May 30th, 7th.
We'll try
So-
to Friday.
I
So-
actually responded to the email.
So that's not enough time for us to, because I'm assuming when we send something to the planning
No.
board, I know you said no, but why would we send something to the planning board that isn't basically close to the final of what they're gonna look at? Like, could we send it to them now, send them an early draft, and?
You
I
can
mean,
send them whatever you want at any time.
No, what I'm saying is, it's a required step in the
Right, I'm saying
process.
you can send them whatever you want as a required step at any time. If you want to
Doesn't
send
have
it
to be
both-
the final version.
No.
I know
Because
you-
you're never gonna
you
have
said
the
I don't
final
understand
vote.
it, but okay.
And Scott Burlingame, for instance, sent comments to us, and I did
Yes.
advise him, hey, Scott, this will be going to your full planning board at a certain point later on, just be aware, we still included his comments. However,
Sure,
just to be clear, whatever they said right now does not count toward what eventually
So
will be.
to me, for
I'll
efficiency,
respond to you and explain why I said no. You asked why I said no, I'm responding to your question. Would you like my
yeah,
response?
go ahead.
Okay. I said no because it's going to the planning board first, then it goes back to you folks, then the public talks, and they could change at that point. So they wouldn't get the final one because they're the first step, if that makes sense. Like, this is what we want to do generally. They're not going to look at where this comma is, where this period is, they're gonna look at the general scope of it. They're gonna provide a recommendation on the general scope, and you're gonna take that recommendation and do with it what you wish, and then change it, and you'll talk, and the public will talk, and then you'll change it again, and so they would never get the final version.
One thing I will request here, if it's possible to do, because this was a request that came in multiple times, but it's not really possible because we didn't take our existing zoning and just modify it. We basically took it and started from scratch, then we went back and incorporated some of the things that maybe should have been carried over. At this stage, I would say redlining the draft 1 to the draft 2 probably would be a wise thing, so that folks,
That's what I'm doing.
well, just to be clear then, to folks out there that asked for this on the current iteration, it's not possible really. You would just see one big red line and then a new document. So in this new next step, there will be that, plus Chris's explanations as to what happened or why on all the changes requested. So we will have the ability for folks to sort of parachute back in quickly to see what's their change. That, you know, if they want to go and talk to the planning board on whatever date that ends up being, then they'll have the ability to do it pretty quickly to see what was there.
All right, so here's my request is, after we get the next draft on the 30th, that this board has a month to process and edit and manage that next draft to come to some kind of consensus if we can. And that process, because we have to look at the changes, we have to come up with comments, we have to consider everyone else's comments on the board, and then have a discussion. I would request that we have a special meeting sometime within that month, maybe 2 weeks after May 30th, that we have a special meeting as a board, just as we have special meetings to discuss other very important laws in the budget, that we have a special meeting where we talk about amongst ourselves, and even beyond, even better would be a special meeting that includes the opportunity for public comments, and then the board has discussion within the board. Would people support that idea?
I think you make that determination the closer we get to the point where it would be realistic to make a date specific. Because
why don't we build it in? We have a timeline.
It's technically built in. Review by village board is listed here as June, July 2025, so it's in there.
But
just a question of specific date and time and how. You know, look. I'm looking at the planning board to say, hey, planning board, what are you catching? Because they have experience in this realm with how they have to deal with things day to day. So they're going to probably have a pretty unique. Scott's was pretty good to start with as a planning board member, but again, he'll redeliver some of that probably through this process. So what we're probably going to get from the planning board, if I had to guess, and Paul, you can verify if I'm right or wrong on this, but we'll get a vote. And we'll also get comments from each member about, hey, this should be changed. I think this is what we did with the PDD back when in 2022. So you kind of get a robust overall feeling and things specific that they're finding in it from their experience. I want to see that and see how long that is before I commit to special meetings and stuff like that, because maybe there's something horribly wrong. Scott didn't find anything horribly wrong, so I doubt there is, but that's my view of it.
I think
you're welcome to express that.
I think it would be safe to, do we agree with the idea of having a special meeting and we can determine the date at some?
I think that's gonna happen no matter what, Ben. That's always
Special meeting.
Yeah, it's just a question of when, and when we get closer to it.
And obviously it'll be before we send it to Saratoga County, because then it has to be final, right?
No, that's not correct either.
Even Saratoga County does not have to be final?
No, usually county will say, agree, disagree, agree with changes, and contingencies.
It's whether it's county impact.
Yeah, county impact.
So we can make all kinds of changes after they see it.
If we feel like we're making a highly material change, we can send it back, but usually you don't reach that level of change at that point.
Right, it just seems to me we should do our changes before we start referring it out, and have that meeting before we start sending it, even to our own planning board, to get it to the next step.
I think I place value in what the county's gonna tell me and what the planning board's gonna tell me, sitting as a village board member at that point, to say, okay, we've had some really highly adept people in this realm giving us comments back. That's important, I think, in what we're gonna consider ultimately. And then we sit down and say, okay, boy, looking at this, we do need to change A, B, C, and D on that. They've got some great points. And then farming out for the last steps of public hearing stuff and whatnot at that point too. All along, we're still getting comments from the public. They're still welcome to.
So we're gonna have to overlap because, sorry, what?
I was gonna say, if you look at the actual amended zoning code timeline, the referral to county planning, I have in July.
You said no later than June 5th through
Turn the
June
page.
18th? What?
Turn the page.
Oh, next page is June 18th. So referral to Sarah County Planning Board for review and recommendation of full draft of Sarah County Board, June 18th through July 17th.
But I'm gonna wrap this
Yes.
up only because we're getting to the 2-hour mark. It's also getting
So-
pretty warm in here, so
Yeah.
let's say this. Our intention is to get a special meeting sometime after at least the planning board will reassess timing for county planning board submission, so it's either June or July, and we'll make sure that's incorporated so that we see what they're saying at the county level. Usually it's not much of substance. Our planning board's gonna have more to say than they will.
And then we'll have a special meeting potentially with public input following those two boards.
Correct.
Reviews. Okay.
Correct. So let's move this along only because it is, like I said, getting warm. We do have public comment for any
And I don't
issue
mean the
here.
public hearing, I'm talking about a special meeting.
Understand.
Okay.
Public comment on any issue, 3 minutes, raise your hand here or on Zoom if you want to talk. And Eve is already up, well, Eve had a hand up. That was pretty quick, Eve. That was you. Go ahead, let's get Eve there. Eve, I'm still working to get DEC on the horn about what we've talked about, just so you know. But go ahead with your comment.
Well, I just wanted to remind you that traffic is still fast on the north end, especially on North Street. Just reminding you that maybe we could slow some things down. And also I'm just reminding that we're trying to beautify Ballston Spa, and Ricketts is not very pretty. So what can we do?
Okay, like I said, I'm trying to get, working with DEC on that. I got your letter that I'll be submitting over to them when I do get them on the horn, so we'll get there. Also, sitting with Danny Nelson on Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. because he wants me to get a first-person point of view of how bad it is in that area at that time of day. So, Danny, make that coffee super strong at 8 a.m., please. Thank you very much. Anybody else on Zoom? If you do, please raise your hand. Anybody in the room? Martha.
Martha Ikelucci, 3 Encore Drive. I would like to address the mayor's use of social media. A week and a half ago, on the Milton Democrats Facebook page, my daughter-in-law was having a conversation with another person when she wrote this, quote, "I live 2 doors down from the water tower, but just over the border between Milton and the village. Actually, a small part of our backyard is village land, so I pay property tax in both places," unquote. In response, the mayor decided that my daughter-in-law was criticizing her taxes, which he wasn't, and then he posted her tax bill. His explanation was that it's public information. Okay, and the public needed to see how much my daughter-in-law paid in village taxes. This was totally inappropriate. It served no purpose other than to harass and intimidate my daughter-in-law because she was voicing her opinion. Number 2, the mayor lists rules on his official mayoral Facebook page, talking about respectful discussions with fellow Facebook members and reserving the right to delete submissions that contain, quote, personal attacks of any kind, unquote. Here's what was posted recently. "These people really suck. Nothing you could possibly do would make them happy. They, Liz, Keith, the Lycolucci's, Baskin, Raymond, and the Stevensons are willing to burn the village down rather than see you succeed. It's pathetic, and so are they." Several subsequent posts from real and fictional people echo those sentiments. Are those not personal attacks, or are they allowed to be posted because of who makes them? The worst example of his inexcusable behavior was at the end of a comment he wrote to my daughter-in-law when he said, quote, "Send my best to the BACC peeps," unquote. This was an out-of-the-blue, irrelevant to any discussion, personal message to my daughter-in-law. In no way was this meant to be a friendly reference. This was meant to intimidate, and I and others see it as a veiled threat. A number of people have contacted me since all this happened and expressed concern about the behavior of the mayor and that they are afraid to say anything. This is the official Facebook page of the mayor's. Is this the public face you want to present for the Village of Friends? The mayor gave me some personal advice on his page recently, which I will happily follow.
5 seconds.
Just like my good friend Ellie Dillon, I will stand up for what is
Time is
right.
up, Martha.
I will speak out when I feel it's necessary, and I will encourage others to do the same.
Thank you, Martha. Next. I want to be recognized first, Liz, but go ahead.
Well, I thought next, didn't see anybody else.
Marilyn's hand was up.
Oh,
Yeah.
Marilyn, please, go ahead. I didn't see your,
No, I didn't have it up.
Not his
turn.
It was early.
Marilyn Stevenson, 45 West High Street. I do appreciate the disclosure of the updated timeline. By the way, the next ZAC meeting is this Thursday, 7 p.m. at 50 West High Street. We continue to actively discuss the topics. And yes, Carla, serving on the ZAC, the 6 people out of 10 that have hung in there, it is a lot of information. We've been working since 2023. It's not an easy committee assignment, but it's absolutely an important one for the village. And I would ask if the timeline that all you had access to, I tried to write everything down as quickly as I could, but is that timeline now public information because it has been disclosed during a public meeting? I'd appreciate knowing that.
That's up to the board to just, a
Okay.
majority of the board to
So
decide.
I'd support the
Don't
public.
look at me, it's up to the majority of the board.
Does anyone object?
We're in public comments, let her finish.
Does any, all right.
The reason I discussed it at the Historic District Committee meeting just a couple days ago was that it was on the agenda. And I just happened to look at that,
The timeline was
agenda.
on the agenda?
the zoning.
The timeline was on the
The
agenda?
zoning topic, the zoning topics.
Process.
A full discussion
Let's-
about
Yeah, it
zoning.
says zoning schedule.
Okay, let's let Marilyn have her time.
Sorry.
She's talking about
Everybody?
historic district
And
commission.
Oh,
so
right.
I came with the same questions that the ZAC had asked the Thursday prior at our May 1st meeting, because we did have a major discussion about that. Whoops, there's a button on here, so.
Not any longer.
So I do want to address that, and that the question about the planning board, during our discussion on May 1st, we perceived this entire zoning workload as a revisit or rezoning, and not the complete package, because at the beginning of the ZAC assignment, we did not have all of the zoning subject matters to deal with. We only had certain parts of the code. I don't know if everybody's aware of that. There are several dozen topics that even before the ZAC met, they were told they were not going to be dealing with those topics. Simple things like garage sales, things like that we never addressed. Stormwater, flood management, things that are in the current code that we're not addressing as part of this revision. The special meeting idea, I think, is a good idea, because part of what the ZAC discussed was how is the public going to see the next iteration. I like the idea of Chris responding to the public comments and promote some transparency.
20 seconds, so it's time to go back to.
Separate issue, as I put my hat on as a member of the garden club, we have a plant sale for the community Saturday, June 14th, 9 to 3 p.m. Looking for local plants. Come to 89 Hyde Boulevard, Ballston Spa, and become a member of the garden club. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Marilyn. Karen on Zoom?
Hi, this is Karen Evanarius, 10 East High Street. Um, I want to say last springtime, I started to come to the zoning advisory meetings, the one that started for businesses, and I've been on and off trying to attend a lot of the meetings. And zoning I find to be very important because of multiple situations and multiple reasons to help better our community. And I want to look at a positive way to move forward and keep businesses and families and homeowners and everyone to be working together in a positive way. And I feel like looking at the zoning and my multiple comments that I have made over the last, my husband and I have made over the last year plus about some of the zoning. And I feel like the current draft that we have seen is not great. There is so much micromanaging of just the basic homeowners to poor businesses. You want small businesses to come in, and they're not going to be able to handle all of it. To just basic things, when I read that you have to have a garbage can locked up into a fenced area, there is so much in this zoning that is unreasonable to your basic homeowner all the way over to your small business owner. And it's concerning that just the planning board is just going to look at it and move it forward with maybe a public comment. Well, I 100% respect Scott Burlingame, and I think he is extremely knowledgeable, and I look forward to more comments he has to say. I just think that there needs to be more of an input. And honestly, I feel like a lot of the comments and the meetings that I've gone to, things that I've said or shared, have been disregarded. Even the meeting we went to in April of last year and a letter we wrote, we feel like anything that we have shared, not that we know at all, because we don't, but has not been reflected. And there's been no notes. And as my husband growing up in this community and owning multiple businesses in this community, it's not that my input is any more important than your homeowner, but it just, you kind of start to see where things are going, and it's a little disheartening. But we're going to keep moving forward and keeping positive with our businesses in the village and keeping to stay positive. But we just hope that things change for the more positive for everybody.
Thank you. And Liz.
Liz Cormos, 89 High. First, just a comment. Mid-August for a final vote. Are you nuts? That's when everybody's on vacation. That's designed not to get the public out. Come on. So please, move it to September. So my other second comment, the mayor read the rules in the Board of Trustees meeting on April 28th, 2025. He read those rules. I won't read them again, but I do not believe that either I or Gina Morosi violated any of those rules at the last meeting. You stated that you thought my actions were, quote, cute, and subsequently expelled both of us when Gina turned around to glare at me, an action she has performed previously without consequence. By removing us, you denied us both of our right to attend and comment at the meeting. Moreover, earlier in the meeting, you yourself appeared to violate these very rules by making personal and impertinent comments following Trustee Baskin's statements on the budget. According to the Village Code of Ethics, an officer, section 27-5A, an officer or employee of the Village of Ballston Spa shall treat all members of the public, whether a person, firm, corporation, or other organization, including village officers, employees, and appointees, with equal consideration and without special favor or prejudice in carrying out their official duties. I respectfully urge the mayor and the board to apply these standards fairly and consistently to ensure that the public's right to participate in government is upheld. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ray?
If I may.
You may, go.
Ray Otten, 16 Millbrook Avenue. Couple things I wanted to talk about. First, Sean, one thing you mentioned was we want to be sure we don't have redundancy in the emergency management office. I have to disagree only because redundancy is necessary in those offices. If something happens in the town of Milton, they may have to come to the town of Ballston or somewhere in the village to use a shelter or use this office or whatever. You want the redundancy built in. I've taken all those numeric courses, and all through that, they do emphasize redundancy is not a bad thing. I get it if you're saying, well, we got an emergency vehicle, they have an emergency vehicle, we both don't need that emergency vehicle. Maybe we do, maybe we do. So be careful about the redundancy is all I'm saying. If you're looking at it, go through this 70-page document. A lot of what was in there, don't start marking it up, okay? Because a lot of it that was in there as I read through it is nationally authorized. That's what he did. He put Ballston Spa in the nationally recognized program. So, and that's the best way to do it because then you have all the procedures. I thought it was an excellent program, by the way. Just from my experience, it would work well. The other thing is about the vehicles. It was brought up to maybe look at a used vehicle. All right, I personally haven't bought a used vehicle in over 25 years because when somebody trades in a used vehicle, it's because usually there's something wrong with it. In fire equipment, it is exacerbated. It's bigger than just something's wrong with it. They can't get parts anymore. They can't do this, they can't do that. That's why you would not want to use a used vehicle. Whatever the cost is, they're going to need that cost. They're going to need that item. It's that simple. You know, they spend a lot of time, this is what we need, this is what we need. I have the same questions when I was buying ambulances. Well, why do you have to spend $200,000? Well, because the one that's 140 doesn't work. They work for Mohawk, but which one do you want coming to your house when it's you that you might not be living too well? Last thing, Marilyn, I'm so glad you guys are having a plant sale. We're looking for plants to be donated to the Triangle up at the north end. So I would appreciate anybody that is in that group that wants to donate some plants. You know where I live. You can drop them off at my house. I'll come pick them up. I got a truck.
Wait, what's that address?
16 Middlebrook.
Where?
Yeah, that's it. So please, you know, we're looking for donations of perennials. That can't be anything that grows more than, I think, 34 inches. So whatever you got, we'll take it. Thank you.
Anybody else? See no hands? Board response, including but not limited to board, yeah, okay. Other business, including but not limited to board response. Public comment?
Just the one question, any objection to publicizing the schedule?
I only am concerned about it because there's certain things that aren't concrete, and if there's an adjustment, so I would like to continue to remind people at these meetings when things are coming up. I don't know, I'm just a little concerned about.
I can.
I have a solution. We call it tentative schedule.
Yeah, but then people are like, you're off the tentative
Right,
schedule.
well, that's the thing.
Also, let's figure out what we're doing with the county in the meantime too, because that seems to be a little bit sliding too.
I have a thought.
Yes, you got a thought, go for it.
Still, at 9:30, I have a
I like
thought.
it.
I will condense it and do it just, okay, these are the steps, this is where it has to go. This is the approximate, you know, and this is how long it takes at each step.
Send it to us, we'll look at it.
And I'll send it
see.
to you all and look at it, and if you're good with that, then
Can you put a place marker for special meeting? Because the public will be particularly interested in that
I
timeframe.
I can put something in there saying,
Multiple board meetings.
this is subject to, you know, it'll absolutely say this is subject to, tentative, well, not tentative, but this is subject to, not approval, change,
Yeah,
subject to revision, can include additional meetings.
Well, we've all agreed on a special meeting, I think.
I
You
just
don't know
said,
date.
can include additional meetings. I don't have anywhere to
Well-
put it in there, it'll say it right there.
You don't know when
I
it
think
is.
you kind of will.
Oh, for God's sake.
You don't, wait, you don't want to put special meeting in like July?
July, special meeting, or something like that.
Sean,
Because you
any,
may wanna do it in August or September.
do you have any
July,
additional
August.
comments or anything?
Why
Just to have it a place marker is very clear that it's
I
gonna
will
happen.
submit, it will say the words special meeting,
Okay, thank
Sean.
you.
to be determined at some point.
Anything on other
Thank
business for you?
No.
Thank you. Mary,
I'm good.
Bernadette?
Okay, thank you.
I just want to state, in response to two things, equal treatment, I think everybody knows that I treat people equally. If look no further than expelling both Liz and Gina out of the same meeting. You can't accuse me of nepotism there for darn sure, and at the same time, you were free to join the meeting via Zoom like everybody else, not in attendance and speak at that point. It was just your conduct in this room was exceptional and not in a good way. That night, and so that's why we asked you to leave. Finally, to address Martha's comment briefly, you know, I went on my way to crop things out, redact, whatever you want to call it, in that discussion, because it was a discussion, and I'm sorry if certain people feel that way, but all I can say, Martha, at the end of the day is I hope that you've chastised others that have done worse, far worse to me and my family over the last years on social media and other places. Chastise them in the same way that you chastised me tonight. If we want to talk about equal treatment, there you have
Are they the mayor? The face of the community?
it. It's called being a human being sometimes, Martha. Okay, and can I get a motion that the vouchers be audited and the meeting be adjourned at 9:36 p.m.? Okay, excuse me, hold on. We have not adjourned yet. Stop it. Who's my motion? Trustee Pendenza? Sean, thank you. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Everybody, please leave this room now.